Chapter 1344. He has his ways with makeup. Now for a quick recap. Watch this and remember you are to act like she does, Gustav said while tapping a couple of buttons on the left side of the wall. A footage was projected before Circe in the next moment, and she focused on watching it diligently. TCH. Someone sounds jealous. Me? Jealous? Of who? Of what? Damn you, virgin! The system yelled internally. Yep, definitely jealous, and your virgin insults don't fly anymore since I am not one. At least Circe is a sweet girl unlike you and your gigantic hard-headedness. Gustav shook his head. Hey, who are you calling? The system began to rant uncontrollably in Gustav's head, but he ignored her. Time to change, he voiced while staring at outline of a murky-looking grayish planet in the distance. It was still a very small outline, which meant it was millions of kilometers away, but with the speed of their spacecraft, they would arrive there in only a few seconds. Within a vicinity with buildings erected on tips of what looked like massive spikes that extended from beneath, haggard-looking figures could be spotted moving to and fro. The tips of these massive spikes scattered across the place were each no less than 50 feet distance from one another. The spikes seemed so massive that the buildings constructed on them were perfectly balanced. Some of the buildings also happened to have what looked like massive fans constructed above their roofs. Thin metallic bridges with cube-size holes were erected from one spike to the other, each all connected like transport networks that helped the people around move from one place to another. One would have to be careful when moving on these metallic bridges due to how thin they were. However, there was no other means of movement around these parts since the ground level couldn't be seen from up here. If one was to fall from the bridges, they would keep falling till their figure disappeared into the sea of grayish mist that loitered beneath. These grayish mists below were thick that they made it impossible for anyone to see how deep the spikes extended. Every figure moving around here had contour-like marks on their faces with teal-colored skins. The clothes on their bodies were like furs. They seemed almost primitive but at the same time modern. One thing that seemed quite visible around this parts was the layer of gloom that hung in the air. It hit like a physical existence with how unhappy the expression on the faces of everyone moving around looked. The dimly lit sky did not help matters. The air also happened to be cold with the mixture of strange soil-like odor. One of the figures had a cloak around them which they used in covering the entirety of their face, revealing only a pair of eyes. They walked in the midst of the crowd moving to and fro and arrived before a square-shaped structure far east of this area. This place had lesser number of people moving around it, and none moving into it. This figure walked towards the side of the structure, which happened to be a blind view that people using the bridges would be unable to see. They proceeded to knock on the black solid structure in a particular pattern. Calm! 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 Immediately after the knocking pattern was completed, the entrance made a low shifting noise. Throaty-high din! 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 The wall rescinded in 3 different ways, revealing a small passageway. This figure proceeded to step in and walk till they arrived at the end. Is Twenvik back? The figure questioned the moment they arrived within a spacious area where 3 other people could be spotted. 2 happened to be working on a piece of machinery while the third one was seated at the edge tapping on a keyboard with an holographic monitor before them. Senior Matilda, you have returned. One of the 2 working on the machine voiced with a tone of respect. Just like the figures on the outside, this one also had a teal-colored skin, ragged clothes and counter-like marks on their face. This one happened to have a feminine look with a tail poking out of her rear. Ulla, where is Twenvik? The one who had just arrived pulled the cloak off her figure, revealing her looks. She had a beautiful long white hair, with red rosy cheeks and semi-thin pink lips. She had a 511 figure with slender build. Her looks were much different compared to the others in this space, which looked like a workshop of sorts. Twenvik isn't back yet. Ulla shook her head. What is taking him so long? Matilda's face scrunched up a bit with worry. He may not be back, but we have good news. The male teal-skinned figure tapping on the keyboard voiced from the side. Matilda moved towards him. The holographic monitor displayed two figures walking out of a spacecraft and getting welcomed by a bunch of people in clean red and green robes. These bunch of people welcoming the two newcomers also had teal skin and contour marks on their faces, but compared to the ones currently situated where Matilda was, they looked a lot healthier as well as cleaner. They arrived about an hour ago and were welcome without suspicion, the one tapping on the keyboard said with a joyful expression. A smile appeared on Matilda's face. Good job, Tolda. This is really good news. Thank you, Senior Matilda. I am currently decrypting a message he sent before getting out of his spacecraft, Tolda said with a tone of gratitude. Once you are finished with it, show it to me immediately, Matilda instructed. Tolda nodded in response while Ulla approached to stare at the projection which kept displaying the same footage of the newcomers arriving repeatedly. How do they look exactly like the Baron Diav and his daughter? I can't find any differences. Ulla expressed her astonishment. Hi, he has his ways with makeup. No one would suspect a thing so long as he is able to pull off the character. Matilda chuckled lightly. Wah. I still find it difficult to believe that this is him, she said while focusing on the male newcomer with a cone-shaped head and a singular red shade covering half his face. He was in tight-fitted white robe covered by a black cloak with greenish markings. The famed Gustav Crimson. Ulla's tone depicted excitement as she muttered, We finally have a fighting chance. Matilda's face wore a smile as she turned around to face the third person in their group who was single-handedly working on a rhombus-shaped machinery. He had a tri-monocle and thick strands of scanty black hair on his head. Did you manage to communicate with Her Majesty? He asked while remaining focused on what he was doing. I did. Matilda's smile vanished at this point. What did she say? He inquired. Daria told me. Within a large abode constructed in between two gray-colored rocks, a figure stood within a room. The room was oddly designed with items in places that one would usually find unusual. However, to people of this planet, this would be considered a very luxurious room. This figure stared at his reflection in the liquid-like mirror before him. The shades on his face made the environment look red, but he could see the outline of his 7-feet figure properly. The majestic dark cloak draped around his figure. The tight white robe on the inside with a belt made out of expensive minerals. Everything just seemed extreme. So that Baron Diav guy just walks around in this all day and every planet he visits fear and worship him. The figure shook his head as he voiced with a tone of ridicule. If only they knew, he added before moving to the side to take a sit on the massive bed. The entire planet is in such a terrible state, but these guys have enough resources to provide such treatment to a stranger, and definitely to themselves. He shook his head once more. They will definitely try to make it look as though everything is alright, since Baron Diav is known to be planet investigator working under the Alliance who never visits anywhere without his adorable daughter Valuri Diav. They have no idea that it is me. And the fact that I can scan the entire planet in an instant, so I am well aware that only 20% of places are in a better state than the others. Quite pitiful what they turned this into after taking control. The figure who happened to be Gustav in disguise knew well enough what Baron's job was. It was to make sure the planet was in a good state, under the right authorities with everything blossoming as they should. Natives are also meant to be satisfied with the rulers and living under good conditions. Planet investigators visited every planet under the Alliance and reported back what they noticed. If the planet was deemed to meet the requirements, they would leave them alone. If not, the Alliance would send an army and forcefully take control of the planet to right the wrongs. Chapter 1345. I hope I didn't scare you. If the planet met the requirements, they would leave them alone. If not, the Alliance would send an army and forcefully take control of the planet to right the wrongs. The problem was, there was nothing right with this particular planet, and planet investigators had been here in the past. It turned out that corruption wasn't privy to Earth alone. The last time Baron Diav visited, he most likely took a bribe and didn't report back what he had seen. This also explained the luxurious treatment they were giving Baron Diav at the moment. They expected him to stay quiet again. Unfortunately, this was Gustav, not Baron Diav. They had no idea what was coming to them. "Oh right. I should head to Cersei's room to make this more believable," Gustav voiced before standing to his feet. The moment he stepped out of his room, he came into view with a large hallway with extremely high decorated ceilings and 2 guards stationed beside his room door. Gustav held his head high with pride as he turned to the left and took strides forward. "Don't follow me," he stated with a commanding tone, causing the guards to freeze before they could take a step forward. Both guards had been assigned to him, and were tasked with following him everywhere he went, but now they were at a loss on what to do. They communicated with their eyes, asking each other whether to follow him and risk irking him, which would result in great catastrophe, or stay back and most likely get scolded by their superior. After a brief thought, they decided to stay behind. It wasn't like he was going far, or so they thought. Gustav arrived before a large room door and knocked a couple of times. "Valyuri, it is me," he called out. Tiki-eyed, the door slid open and Gustav proceeded to immediately walk in. After the door behind him shut, he moved to stand before the feminine figure clad in a tight, sleek, black outfit. It looked like she was in a jumpsuit of sorts, but her head was shaped in a triangular format like Gustav's with a singular yellow eye. "Mental manipulation has been activated. I'm heading out, but you must pretend that I am still here. Which means you mustn't let anyone in." Gustav communicated with Cersei through their minds to prevent anyone from eavesdropping on them. Not like he wouldn't notice if anyone tried such. "All right, father. I will stay here and make sure no one gets in," Cersei assured Gustav. Gustav placed his hand on her head and caressed her hair affectionately for a moment before turning around. "I can make my presence vanish completely without activating cognitive concealment, so I should be good," he thought while retracting his energy and presence. Cersei's eyes widened slightly in disbelief as Gustav vanished from her line of sight. She wasn't just unable to sense his presence, she was unable to see him as well. Gustav was able to do this by mimicking Jack and Mac. Unfortunately, more powerful beings would still be able to sense him if he were to try such in their presence without activating cognitive concealment. However, with the strength of everyone currently around him, he knew he would go unnoticed. Underscore 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 underscore. "He said he is coming, that is all the message says," Matilda said while pointing at the holographic projection before him. Matilda stared at the message as well with a slightly dumbfounded expression. "But he doesn't know where we are. Our mole wouldn't have made contact with him yet," Ulla voiced with a slightly uneasy tone. "That can only mean one thing," Matilda said while turning around. Thyish. The walls before them suddenly separated, revealing a wide passageway that led to the entry point of the structure. Everyone stopped what they were doing and stared at the empty passageway with expressions of puzzlement. "Why did it open?" Tolda voiced as a chill permeated his spine. Ulla shrugged in uncertainty. "It never activates unless someone uses the knocking unlock pattern," she whispered. "But there is no one there." Tolda pointed at the empty passageway as the feeling of eeriness increased. The passageway began shutting back, and after a few seconds, silence ensued. "Hello, Gus." A smile appeared on Matilda's face as she voiced softly. "I hope I didn't scare you." A masculine voice resounded from behind Tolda. "Eek!" Tolda jumped in fright the moment he turned around to spot someone standing behind him. His arm instinctively swung forward to slap the figure, but before it could reach their face it was stopped. "It's him," Matilda said from the side after grabbing Tolda's arm. "Oh!" Tolda exclaimed in realization as he lowered his arm in embarrassment. Ulla's eyes widened in astonishment as she spotted the 7-foot-tall figure up ahead in majestic dark robes, and one large shade covering half of his cone-shaped head. "Sir Gustav Crimson? Is that really you?" Ulla questioned with stars shimmering in her eyes. "Sir?" the tall figure said while slowly shape-shifting. "Ulla is a big fan," Matilda said while drawing closer to hug Gustav. "Oh, eh? That doesn't seem right," Gustav responded after completely transforming back into his 63 original look. He proceeded to return the hug as he and Matilda remained in each other's embrace for a few seconds. They were both aware that each of them had been through a lot in the past year, so the hug felt more like they were comforting each other. Especially since they hadn't seen each other in 8 months and had only communicated through encrypted messages that transcended space. After they separated, Matilda felt a little relief. It was like her spirits had been rejuvenated, and she hoped it was the same for Gustav. "Pa!" Gustav snapped his finger, and the shade on his face instantly vanished. Ulla's eyes widened even more. "It is truly you," she muttered while moving to stand in between him and Matilda. "It is a pleasure to finally meet you. Can I shake your hand, sir?" Ulla gushed uncontrollably, causing Toldu to roll his eyes by the side. "What is with her?" Gustav said to Matilda as he stretched out his hand. Ulla disregarded Gustav's unsettled tone and held his hand like she was holding on to the most prized piece of material in the universe. So smooth, so strong, so... She was lost in her admiring thoughts while Matilda gave Gustav a little explanation. "They watched Aesop even if their planet didn't participate. A lot of them are infatuated with you," Matilda said. "Yeah, but still am wanted and known as very dangerous, so..." Gustav had expected a different reaction, especially since everyone was scared of their planet ending up like planet Osius. "They know you're here to save them. Also, not everyone believes the bullshit the Alliance is spewing about you. Haven't you heard of the Gustavo resistance?" Matilda inquired. "The Gustavo what now?" Gustav's mouth hung loosely as he hoped it wasn't what he thought it was. "A religious group who appeared after you were declared wanted by the Alliance. They claim to be your loyal worshippers and also claim that you are destined to free the universe from bondage, whatever that means." Matilda shook her head while trying to hold the laughter that nearly burst from her lips. "What? My name isn't even Gustavo." Gustav was appalled. At this point, Matilda couldn't hold her laughter in any longer, and began letting it out uncontrollably. Tolda stared at her with a look of disbelief. She had never smiled since she arrived there nearly 3 months ago, but since his arrival not only did she smile, she even laughed. "I've never seen such a pretty smile." Tolda couldn't help but look bewildered as he wondered just what kind of person Gustav was to cast a ray of light upon the gloomy environment with only a few minutes of his appearance. "At least some people believe you're innocent and aren't running heedlessly with what the Alliance is feeding the universe," Matilda voiced after she finally relaxed. Gustav pulled his arm back from Ulla, who had been inspecting it all the while he had been talking to Maltida with gazes of adoration and eyes filled with wonder. "I hate this outfit. How long do I have to keep it on?" Gustav inquired. "Till we can guarantee Daria's safety," Matilda answered. "I could really just go get her from wherever she is and bring her here," Gustav said with a casual tone. "You can?" Ulla's eyes shimmered. "It isn't difficult," Gustav responded. "It's not that simple," Matilda chimed in. She turned to the side and walked towards the Albriucchi's man by the side working on a rhombus-shaped piece of machinery. "Riola has been working on this device for the past 2 months. It's supposed to help free Daria and the royal family left alongside the royal guards from the energy slave shackles around their hearts," Matilda explained. Energy slave shackles, isn't that one of the forbidden items not meant for sale under the Alliance?" Gustav questioned. Chapter 1346 An accident indeed. "Yes," Matilda replied. "And I can't try to free them because even the slightest bit of tampering would trigger an implosion." Gustav held his chin as he came to an understanding. "Yes, there would be no point in freeing Planet Abrukes if the leaders are gone, since everything would go to shit if there was no ruler. It would all be for nothing if Daria dies," Matilda added. "How long before Riola is finished with the equipment?" Gustav inquired. 3 days, Riola answered. "So long as you lots can learn to be quiet," he added. "Grandpa Riola! That's Gustav Crimson!" Ulla yelled from the side. "Especially you, kiddo. Your mouth keeps running like a never-ending stream." Riola raised his head to shoot Ulla a glance. "Ack!" Ulla exclaimed like she had just been shot by 1,000 invisible arrows. Humph! Riola readjusted his trimonocle. Told to get me the fenner wheel, he instructed. Tolda instantly moved to grab an odd-looking fan-like tool and passed it to him. We should leave them to it, Matilda said with a low tone before dragging Gustav into a separate space. I'm surprised she's still alive. How long has it been since you two saw each other? Gustav inquired the moment they switched locations. 10 years. Matilda had a teary expression as she muttered. Her mind went back in time as she recalled the message she got from Daria over 5 years ago. Underscore 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 underscore. The image of a beautiful looking girl with 2 pear-shaped golden eyes and purplish skin crowned with silky long black hair appeared above a device in Matilda's grasp. The outline of a square-shaped black mark could be spotted on her forehead along with green contour marks surrounding it. Boom! 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 Sounds of an explosion could be heard coming from the footage which depicted the chaos that surrounded her. The footage shook severally, and although the visibility in the surroundings was low, one could spot tiny red glowing particles in the surroundings. Matilda, I need your help. I didn't tell you the truth all those years ago, but am actually a princess to the largest empire on Abrukes. We are currently at war. My empire was lacking in forces after my grandfather, the emperor, was assassinated, and my father also went missing, leaving me to cater for the kingdom. I lost over 30% of my forces to bad leadership, and some even defected to the other kingdoms after deeming me unworthy to lead. Tears started streaming out of her eyes as she got to this point. I don't want my people to perish, so I will have to surrender. I know many of them will meet their end because of my decision, but I have no other choice so long as some lives can be preserved. I have repeatedly requested help from Earth, but they ignored my pleas, saying they cannot interfere in interplanetary wars. I do not wish to disturb you with my problems, but if this message does get to you, please, Matilda, get help for my people. I know you, Matilda. You're strong. When you become powerful enough, please try to save my people. If you can't, it's okay too. Just make sure you live your life to the fullest and be happy. Regardless of what comes to be, I have always loved you, and I will always love you. I haven't forgotten all the times we spent together. Our fond memories are one of the things that kept me going through the toughest times. Underscore 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 underscore. I focused on getting stronger all this time and increasing my MBO rank so I could finally rescue her and save her planet. Didn't think this is how things would turn out, with Angie missing and you becoming a fugitive. Matilda let out a sigh as she returned to the present. Not only had she deserted the MBO to go on this unsolicited mission which remained unapproved, but she wasn't even powerful enough to save Daria and Angie without help. If the ones who took over didn't kill her after she surrendered, then they must need her for something. They killed her father and immediate family members but left her in captivity. She must hold some kind of value. Gustav rubbed his chin slightly. The current emperor wants her to bear his kids. Ulla voiced from the side. Oh? Couldn't he just impregnate anyone else? Gustav questioned. The royal line has to be continued. They bear a bloodline that will be lost if Her Majesty was to perish without bearing offsprings. Ulla explained. I guess that explains it. Gustav muttered. However, he couldn't put his thumb on why he felt there was still something missing, but he was okay with working with the amount of information he had. He'll head back for now and give them a little run for their money. Gustav voiced while turning around. 3 days. After that, he'll strike. I should take them by surprise. Gustav added. Matilda nodded in response. He'll focus on saving Daria and the others. You go on a rampage when the time comes. Gustav nodded after transforming back into Baron Diav. Gustav. Matilda suddenly called out to him before he could leave. He mumbled after pausing his steps. Try not to interfere when you see any wrongdoings on your way back. It's best we remain as discreet as possible, Matilda cautioned. Sure, Gustav stated before completely vanishing from their presence. It might be a little too late for that warning. The system rang in Gustav's head as he reappeared outside the structure. Shut up, it won't cause any issues, Gustav responded internally as his figure blurred. Swaya, a burst of wind spread in all directions as Gustav recalled what had happened an hour ago, while his figure streaked across the air. Underscore 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 underscore. Please, I just need dead were for my son. Bam! Bam! Pa! Im not. Not a thief. Bam! Pa! Pa! Please! My son, my son would have died of thirst like his little sister and mother. Bam! Pa! Pa! Kiar! Please! Bam! Pa! Pa! The sound of kicks and blows continuously rang out as a group of three in green and red robes surrounded an Abrukese native in a tattered outfit. They assaulted the blue-skinned individual without mercy despite his heartbreaking screams and pleas. All of a sudden, boom! A loud explosion rang out behind them, causing a large 30 feet tall structure to collapse. The officials immediately stopped and turned around with looks of confusion as everyone ran helter-skelter. You two go check it out, I'll deal with. He was still speaking when he turned his head around to stare at the individual they were beating up a second ago. Where did he go? He asked with a tone of confoundment. The other two turned around in surprise. Huh? Where did he go? Another one of them asked. Isn't that what I just asked? Just as they began arguing about the tattered man who suddenly vanished, another explosion rocked the vicinity. Ah! All three of them screamed uncontrollably as a large piece of flaming building descended from the sky. Bang! All three of them got crushed before they could get away. Underscore 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 underscore. It was just an accident, Gustav muttered as his mind returned to the present. An accident indeed, the system said with a tone of ridicule. In an unknown location covered with greenish mist, a figure could be barely spotted trotting through. It almost looked like he was walking in the sky since the mist in the vicinity was like clouds with a different color. This figure had a tight-fitted black t-shirt on with ash-colored pants. His facial hair made him look like he wasn't a day above 26 years of age, and his curly black hair occasionally fluttered due to the mild winds blowing across the place. The vicinity seemed quite serene and spectacular. One would feel like they were on a vacation if they visited this place, but this was far from the thoughts of the person currently traversing the environment. Krura! A roar suddenly rang out as a serpentine-shaped creature, the size of a skyscraper, appeared within the sea of greenish mist. It was unknown if it had been there all this time, staying unnoticed, but one sure thing was that it had spotted the individual who had just wandered into its domain. Twice had charged forward powerfully, causing the greenish mist in the surroundings to clear a path due to the immense volume of wind its figure generated. The humanoid figure it was aiming for suddenly raised his right arm with an unbothered expression on his face. Pa! He snapped his finger effortlessly, causing an invisible barrier to appear between himself and the creature. Bang! Its gigantic beastly face crashed into the invisible barrier, causing a loud blast to ring out as powerful shockwaves surged forth from their position. As the greenish mist in the vicinity cleared from the collision, thousands of arm-sized bat-like creatures rained from the air with blood. Chapter 1347 Meal with Emperor Dios. As the greenish mist in the vicinity cleared from the collision, thousands of arm-sized bat-like creatures rained from the air with blood. Pat! Pit! Pat! 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 Their lifeless bodies splattered across the ground, changing its color, while the massive serpentine creature tried to contend with the invisible barrier before it to no avail. The humanoid figure in the midst of this chaos was untouched despite the number of creatures and blood raining from the air. Krura! The serpentine-structured skyscraper-sized beast roared once more, causing the vicinity to quake intensely. However, this time, an icy blue light could be spotted gathering in its mouth. Nah! The humanoid figure with adult facial features muttered before stretching his right hand forward. A blue silvery glow coated his entire palm as he proceeded to clench his fingers into a fist. A powerful telekinetic energy surged forth, and the creature before him began trembling intensely. It felt an unfathomable energy rummaging through its insides. It let out another roar in pain as its entire being got lifted off the ground and the light gathering initially got snuffed out. The humanoid figure proceeded to yank his arm backwards like he was pulling something. A flesh-ripping sound rang out in the next instant. A massive organ was pulled out of place from its insides and got ripped out of its mouth. Blood jetted out of its mouth like a waterfall as this massive meaty organ, which was the size of a house, traveled across the air and landed before the humanoid figure. Splat-ba-dump. Bad, dump. The organ jiggled and let out 2 loud beats before finally going silent after letting out the third one. The creature stared at this organ that had come out of it in disbelief as it fell from the air. It remained in place for a few moments, growing weaker by the second before its eyes finally turned listless. The humanoid figure stepped forward casually and reached out to touch the murky-looking organ which had all sorts of liquids spilling from it. Zing! The building-sized organ emitted a silvery blue glow in the next moment and vanished. 7 Targaryen hearts harvested, 1 more to go. Endrick muttered as he resumed his steps forward like he hadn't just murdered a creature that caused great havoc were it to be released on the earth. I should probably take my time since Big Brother will be arriving later than planned, he thought out loud as he came to a stop. He turned back around to stare at the massive corpse of the creature he had just slaughtered. Do you think that would taste good? Endrick questioned. I think you need a fresh cut more than you need to eat. Endrick's forehead emitted a green glow as an elderly masculine voice responded to his earlier question. Huh? Why? Endrick asked with a look of bafflement. A mirror appeared before Endrick and he proceeded to stare at his reflection in it. You're only a teenager. You're not supposed to look like a father of 6 children, Husarius pointed out. Do fathers of 6 children even exist? Endrick muttered cluelessly as he stared at the facial hair that had covered half his face. You're 17. How can you be looking older than your nearly 21-year-old brother? Husarius voiced with a tone of concern. It doesn't matter, Endrick said while moving past the mirror. Speaking of Big Brother, I probably should have asked him for cooking lessons. How do I turn this into an edible meal? He questioned with a lost look after arriving before the corpse of the massive serpentine beast. Underscore 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 planet. A brookies a day had gone by since Gustav's arrival here, and in the last 24 hours he had been entertained and visited by important delegates within this planet. When he left to visit Matilda the other day, someone had come visiting, and since the guards were aware that Baron Dialv was with his daughter, they came knocking on Cersei's door. Fortunately, Cersei didn't answer any of them and proceeded to remain in the room till they left. However, there was this one person who knocked twice and voiced some strange words. After that person left, she sensed that a package was dropped at the door. After she picked up what was left at the door, which was disguised as a gift, she went on to shut it back so as not to arouse any suspicion. Cersei didn't understand what was inscribed in the package, so the moment Gustav returned she gave him a breakdown of everything that happened and handed the package over to him. That's one of the moles. He was to deliver the location of Matilda to me. Gustav had explained this to her at the time. They didn't expect Gustav to figure out Matilda's location and head there himself just by scanning the entire planet. After the brief meeting with Matilda, Gustav understood that they had moles everywhere. Within the official troops of guards who were like the police force. within kingdom royal maids, within political offices, and even within the higher-ups. Apparently, some of these people in places of authority were still loyal to the crown and not the rebel who took over. The only problem was, if they had tried to free Daria or fight against the injustices, they would have met their end. The opposition wasn't someone who they could face on their own. However, now that they had a little bit of help, they could finally try to fight back. Emperor Dios. He is as powerful as a peak beta ranked mixed blood. Almost an alpha, but that's the peak level of strength on this planet, Gustav analyzed as he sat within a dining area. In this large dining area, sitting across from him was a 9 feet tall blue-skinned male with a 1-inch horn protruding out of his chin. He exuded a domineering aura as he sat in place while throwing a strong gaze at the being sitting from across him. On the left was Circe, who dug into the exotic dishes arranged on the dining table made of a precious green rock. Opposite Circe was a young but mature-looking purple-skinned female. She had a pair of pear-shaped golden eyes and silky black hair. She was extremely beautiful, with her massive chest brushing against the side of the dining as she sat in place. The Emperor finally lowered his gaze to stare at the dishes before reaching to grab a large piece of meat. He proceeded to take a huge bite out of it whilst maintaining a poker face. It was at this same moment that the others finally decided to eat as well. Emperor Dios watched as the 10 feet tall being on the far end of the table dig into the food just like he did. They were almost mirroring each other and both radiated with a certain pressure that put fear on the faces of the maids serving them. The young Abrukes female opposite them also ate slowly without as much as an expression on her face. She almost seemed like a puppet. Circe seemed to be the only one here eating without a care in the world. Investigator Baron Diov, I trust you have been enjoying your stay here? Emperor Dios questioned after gulping down another large piece of meat. The silence was finally broken due to this question. Indeed, Emperor Dios. My stay here has been quite splendid. It almost feels like a vacation. Gustav, who was still in the form of Baron Diov, answered with a tone of satisfaction. That is wonderful news, Emperor Dios replied. The food is good. The hospitality is truly delightful, but I still have a lot of places to inspect in person, Gustav pointed out before gulping down a mouthful of what would be considered wine on this planet. This is terrible. I would barf it out if I didn't have to play the role of Diov, Gustav internalized his disgust. Emperor Dio's hand paused the drink close to his lips after he heard Gustav's last statement. Investigator Baron, I have some gifts for you, Emperor Dios stated. How wonderful! Gustav spoke with a delighted tone, but internally, this must be where the bribery comes in. In the next instant, a bunch of people stepped into the living room and dropped items in large packaging beside Gustav. Grey ore stones, thousands of them. As you are well aware, very valuable, Emperor Dios stated. Much appreciated, Emperor. Really mouth-watering gifts, Gustav said with a tone of appreciation. I am indeed glad you like them. I hope this gift implores Investigator Baron to send a good report back to the Alliance. Emperor Dios voiced out exactly as Gustav had predicted. Emperor, you needn't say any more. This planet is no doubt in good condition and in good hands, Gustav said while letting out a low chuckle. Chapter 1348. The separator machine is ready. Then I must implore Investigator Baron to excuse me and my wife, as we have important matters to take care of, Emperor Dios voiced while getting up. Not a problem, Emperor. I am sure you must be busy, since running an entire planet must be a lot of work, Gustav replied with a tone of understanding. I am sure the investigator is busy as well. Safe travels on your way tomorrow. Emperor Dios reached out to shake Gustav after waltzing over. Tomorrow? He wants me to leave immediately. I guess my presence makes him uneasy, but I cannot leave tomorrow. I need to play this off somehow so it doesn't get suspicious if I decide to stay. Gustav's thoughts went on a rampage as he got to his feet. As much as I would have loved to leave tomorrow, my daughter wishes to visit the Perking Center, so I would like to take her there tomorrow. It is going to be our last tourist visit before leaving the day after tomorrow, Gustav said while reaching out to receive the handshake. Is that so? Emperor Dios seemed a bit unsettled as he asked with a low tone. Father must accompany me. I want to see the Perking Center, Cersei yelled from the side with food in her mouth. Ha ha! You know how children get, Gustav stated with a light laughter while their hands were still connected. Oh wait, does the Emperor not have children? Gustav added, causing Emperor Dios to retract his hand. Gustav could have sworn he had a subtle humph escaped the Emperor's mouth. The Emperor stole a brief glance at his wife and turned around to walk away. I hope you enjoy your time at Perking Center. His voice faded into the background as he soon disappeared along with a lot of royal guards. I guess that convinced him, Gustav said internally. The child's statement must have gotten to him. He also recalled how the Emperor stole a brief glance at Daria before leaving. I could really just murder him right now and retrieve Daria, but because of the slave shackles, that would be a very risky move. They said 3 days, so after tomorrow, I will end him, Gustav I knitted as he decided internally. Up ahead, Emperor Dios stepped out with his guards and right-hand advisor. I feel uneasy. Something smells suspicious, Emperor Dios said with a low tone. My lord, is it because of the investigator? The advisor inquired. I don't know. It is just a gut feeling, Emperor Dios responded. The gifts should serve their purpose, but if my lord is worried, I shall make sure they are under complete surveillance till they leave. The advisor voiced out in a bid to calm him. Not just that, double the palace guards and make preparations for a battle just in case, Emperor Dios instructed. Yes, my lord. If the investigator tries anything, he will meet his end before he gets the chance to leave this planet, the advisor said with a tone of certainty. Good, the Emperor stated before jumping onto the back of massive creature before him. The bird-like creature, which was the size of a building, spread its wings and flapped them powerfully. Twoosh, they ascended into the sky at very quick pace, leaving a cloud of dust beneath them. Good save there, Cersei, Gustav said to the female before him as he rubbed her hair affectionately. Thank you, Daddy, Cersei responded with a cute tone as she giggled. Cersei was unaware of the locations within the planet, but she instinctively spoke up the moment Gustav referred to the character she was playing as. Now we just have to hold on till tomorrow passes before we strike. Which means we have to visit Perking Center tomorrow. Gustav wasn't dissatisfied with the turnout of things. He just had to go sightseeing tomorrow, and nothing about that seemed difficult. I hope you are aware that the Emperor is suspicious? The system voiced in his head. That is quite normal, though. It is expected for a ruler who acquired power through the wrong means and continuously inflicts pain upon his subjects to be on edge when a higher power that could put him in check happens to be at his doorstep, Gustav responded internally. There is no doubt that he was this way the last time the real Baron Diav visited. The only difference was probably the fact that Baron Diav left after getting his bribe. Either ways, he would still get suspicious, but he would never be able to put his finger on what exactly is going on, Gustav added. Okay. Just watch out before you get smoked out, the system warned. Sure. I need to get out of here and meet up back with Endrik as soon as possible, so I want this to be over with soon as well. Gustav wished he could leave right away, but he couldn't help feeling pity for the natives of Abrukes. They had underwent over 10 years of bondage at the hands of a dictator. Not only did Emperor Dios slaughter most of the royal household in Florus Empire, he also turned the people to slaves the moment he took control. Florus Empire was the largest in the planet, especially due to their gray ore stones, which was a valuable commodity across galaxies. Daria was the only daughter of her father who was to take control after the Emperor, her grandfather. Her grandfather had lived many years and was still very much active when he got murdered. Daria's father would have taken control, but he and his wife lost their lives in an ambush as well. Daria was meant to take the throne afterwards, but with everything that had happened, a royal uncle made the call to have her sent to Earth for her safety. She was to return when she was mature enough to lead and gain power. That was how she met Matilda. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned and she had to return after her kingdom had lost battles upon battles and her people were getting slaughtered like animals. Dios at the time had a very fierce army with lots of powerful generals under his lead. He was also uncaring about the lives of the people. All he wanted was Cottrell. After surrendering, he stopped slaughtering her people as promised, but he turned them to slaves instead. The men, women and children were all forced to mine for gray ore stones. They were barely making ends meet from this, but Dios was getting even more powerful. Through this, his army grew and he proceeded to conquer not just Flores' empire but the others on this planet. He declared himself the emperor of Abrukes afterwards and put the entire planet in bondage. A few years into his reign, a lot of areas in the planet became polluted from too much mining for gray ore stones. Waters dried up in many places and buildings had to be constructed on what was left of the ground in these areas. Grounds were corroding and even the wind was getting polluted. A lot of people lost their lives from the changes, but Dios didn't care. He ensured that his pockets and that of his subordinates continued getting filled. Daria was powerless to stop him no matter how much she tried. Horrible, truly horrible. Gustav was even more disgusted compared to how he felt with Foghorn. This is probably how Earth would have turned out if I hadn't stopped young Joe that day. He shook his head. He felt it was even worse that Earth never interfered even after Daria pleaded so many times for assistance. This explained why she looked lifeless today. She had lost all hope. If I didn't have people I cared about, I would have regretted ever saving that planet more than once. Gustav shook his head. Why don't you just take control of Earth in the future and rule if you don't like the way they do things? The system inquired. What sort of dumb suggestion is that? Gustav asked with an irked tone. Think about it. If you complete the 5 years quest, it should be possible. You will be more powerful than them after all. The system voiced. Not interested. They can go fuck themselves for all I care. Is it finished now? Within a workshop space, a familiar feminine tone rang out. Yes, the separator, Riol answered while tapping the rhombus-shaped machinery before him. One charge of this and everyone within a 1-mile radius gets freed of the slave shackle, he added. Good. Now we just need Twenvik and Tolda to get it there, Matilda said with a serious expression. We will, Tolda answered from the side. After they are successful, Her Majesty has to be taken out of the premises so Gustav Crimson can do what he needs to. Riol chimed in. Leave that to me. Ulla, you focus on sending the message to the troops to be ready to storm the place, Matilda instructed. Chapter 1349 The Wait Begins. Leave that to me. Ulla, you focus on sending the message to the troops to be ready to storm the place, Matilda instructed. Understood, Ulla answered with a nod. Riol, you send Gustav a message. Tell him to be ready, Matilda instructed. Upon conclusion with their plans, Matilda and the others made their way out of the workshop space. Meanwhile, today was fun, father, Cersei said to Gustav as they returned to their accommodation area. Gustav patted her head softly as they sped away on the back of a massive bird that looked like a mix between pigeon and wolf. Its claws were covered by the massive fur around its figure, but it was no doubt there. On the body of this same creature were 2 officials in green and black robes. They seemed to be the guards in charge of watching after Baron Diav and Valyuri. Gustav looked down and could see the state of a lot of places on the planet from his bird's-eye view. The gray gases occupied a large part of the planet's floor and structures erected on the tips of massive spikes. Why are these parts different from what I am used to seeing? Gustav questioned. Like this was his first time seeing the situation of the planet in some areas. The question had totally taken the guards by surprise, as one could easily see the look of uneasiness on their faces. Well, you see, Baron, one of them began stuttering. They were scared of answering wrongly, knowing this could put the planet at risk of being forcefully obtained by the Alliance, which would also mean their heads on a pike since Emperor Dios would not let such a blunder pass. Lord Baron, these places are under construction. The other guard quickly spat out a lie. Construction? It seems to cover a lot of places. Wouldn't that be expensive? Gustav questioned with a look of cluelessness. Yes, Lord Baron. Our great Emperor is only after bettering the planet, so this will turn into an upgrade soon, the other guard added with a convincing tone. I see. Gustav's face showed understanding and cluelessness, but internally he was laughing at the guards' responses. It didn't seem like they were aware that Gustav had collected the bribe yet, and they were doing their best not to screw things up. Internally they prayed that the Baron would not ask any more questions. 3 days up. Those guys better be ready or I will really have to leave tomorrow, Gustav said internally as a twin mountain came up in their line of view. Fothushush the flying bird was controlled to land exactly on the middle part of the left mountain where a gigantic establishment could be spotted. They had arrived at the location where they were given accommodation. Gustav and Circe wasted no time in getting off the flying creature and heading into the large establishment that was structured like the helmet of a gladiator. The moment they got in, Gustav noticed one of the male workers in the establishment giving him some kind of signal. Mental manipulation has been activated. They're watching our every move, so I'm heading to your room with you again. Remember what we did the other day, make sure no one comes in. Understood, father, but why can't I join you this time? Circe asked internally. 'Cause I don't know what the situation is yet. I need to hear from the mole first, Gustav answered internally as they maintained mind communication. They soon arrived in Circe's room, and the moment they settled in, a knock was heard on the door. The Emperor sends his greetings. I have been tasked with delivering departure gifts to the Baron and his beloved daughter. A voice was accompanied by the knock. Gustav went on to open the door, and a bald, blue man holding on to what looked like a box handed the entire thing to him. Gustav nodded after accepting it before shutting the door. Must contain a message from Matilda. They're probably done with making that machine. Gustav immediately drew up this conclusion as he opened up the box. A tab-like device could be spotted, which he reached out to grab. Upon activation, it projected a footage of Matilda. The separator machine has been completed successfully. By the time you get this message, we will already be infiltrating the main palace where Daria and the others are kept. This message will display a 50-minute countdown after it finishes playing. That is how much time we would need to free her of the slave shackle. Then you can come in and deal with the fake emperor and his guards. On no account must you attack before this time frame, or Daria would be lost to us. Immediately after Matilda finished speaking, the projection went dark for a moment. In the next instant, a timer appeared and began counting down. 49 hours 55 minutes and 1 second. So now I gotta wait. Gustav muttered as he stared at the display. You could still watch though, the system voiced internally. True. Gustav's eyes emitted a crimson glow in the next instant. Life sign tracking has been activated, coupled with my perception. This should be an interesting watch. In the dark of night, a bunch of silhouettes could be seen circling a perimeter that had a large beast-like structure centered within. The dim glow of the 3 green moons in the night sky didn't do well enough to unveil the looks of the silhouettes, as they hid behind rocks in the vicinity to hide their presence. A well-structured path could be seen leading from the mouth of the beast-shaped building up ahead down into the distance where the silhouettes originated from. The visibility of the extremely beautiful surroundings would have been spotted had it not been nighttime. The area appeared to be more secluded in comparison with the others, so it was naturally darker, as well. They proceeded slowly as they could already spot tens of guards moving around the vicinity. The moment we're at the entrance of the beast's mouth, we need to deactivate the alarms or we risk attracting backup guards to our location, one of the silhouettes whispered. They'll take care of that, another one of the silhouettes whispered back. One would wonder how they could hear each other despite how quietly they spoke with each other. However, they had a method of communication that made this possible. We need to deal with the guards here first and very quickly before any of them alert others. 'Twas of a strange breeze suddenly encapsulated the entire vicinity, causing even some of the silhouettes to lose their balance. What in the world is that? One of them uttered with a tone of momentary confusion. Done! A feminine voice was heard from up ahead. Their eyes widened as they swiftly stood to their feet and headed in the direction of the beast's mouth up ahead. Tens of guards could be spotted sprawled across the place in pools of their blood, with a feminine figure clad in all black waiting for them at the entry point. Some of them were visibly shocked as they froze in place for a bit. Did she slaughter them all? Their eyes widened at this realization. The Dio's guards were the most powerful force on the planet, yet she had just slaughtered them like weak chickens in mere seconds. "What are you guys waiting for? Move!" she said with a tone of apprehension. "Yes, Senior Matilda." A bunch of them answered in unison before heading further. The entrance to the beast-like structure gave way to a bunch of stairs waiting for them the moment they got to the end. This whole structure appeared to be constructed in such a way that nothing was located at the center except for a gigantic hole. The stairways led only downwards, so it happened to look like a dungeon of sorts. "Quickly! We don't have all day," Matilda said to the others as they made their way downwards on the spiral, sloppy stairways. "Hey, stop the—" Two guards down ahead spotted them and yelled, but before they could even complete their sentence, "Twiwa pure cluckle." Two large silvery projectiles shaped like spikes shot forward at an insane speed and pierced through both of them. Their figures were blasted across the air, and before anyone could understand what was going on, they spotted two guards impaled into the walls by the side while bleeding out. "Keep going," Matilda instructed. Every one of the silhouettes wasted no time in continuing forward. Sure, the strength that Matilda had shown there was terrifying, but she was on their side, so they had nothing to worry about. So he just keeps her down here until he feels like showing her off again, or whenever he wants to try mating? Unforgivable. Matilda was bottling up rage that had been building up within her for over 10 years. Chapter 1350 Unexpected Confrontation. Matilda was bottling up rage that had been building up within her for over 10 years. Silvery liquid gathered around her like orbs as they sped down the structure. They formed shapes according to her will and shot forward with incredible speed as well as power. Twi high. Bang. Twi high. Bang. Twi. Bang. The entire structure quaked multiple times as guards continuously dropped like flies. After heading down for about 10 minutes, the whole place suddenly began to quake uncontrollably. Unfortunately, this time it wasn't Matilda's doing. Screeve bam! A massive rock-like covering suddenly phased out of the wall below like a lid and shuttled to the other end of the wall, completely hindering their descent. "Looks like they are aware of our presence," Ulla voiced from the side, her figure barely visible as well due to her all-black outfit. "Well, this was to be expected, but at Leah." Before she could complete her sentence, Matilda suddenly sensed danger and grabbed Riol, who was right beside her. Why, she leaped backward with him in her grasp as a streak of yellow shot past, missing them by a hairbreadth. Bang! Web-like cracks appeared all over the rocky wall by the side as a small needle-like projectile could be spotted embedded in the middle. It was so little, yet it seemed so dangerous because of the intensity of the damage it created. "You managed to evade, good!" A raspy voice cooed out as a figure could be spotted phasing out of the wall on the opposite end, which was over 50 feet away. A feminine figure in a green armored outfit without a helmet became more visible as they moved closer. Dash. "That's Serene, one of the 5 generals." Dash. "What is she doing here?" Dash. "We're done for." Some of the silhouettes spoke shakily in fear as they identified the figure, who happened to be a nearly 7-foot-tall blue being with a raspy voice. "Only ordinary guards and maybe a few stronger ones than the others should be here. I guess I should take this as one of those unexpected encounters I planned for by setting the timer the way I did," Matilda said internally as she moved Riol to stand behind her since there was nowhere to hide. "I assume that person must be valuable with the way a person as powerful as yourself is protecting them," Irene stated as yellowish glowing dots began to appear around her. "What is with that?" "Something is wrong." The moment the thought appeared in Matilda's mind, the needle embedded in the wall behind them emitted a yellow glow. Boom! An explosion instantly rocked the vicinity, covering the entire area in a world of yellow. Kyre! Loud cries rang out as debris and smoke completely marred the visibility of the surroundings. There was no doubt that the second blast had caused casualties. Irene waved her hand to clear the dust around her as she stepped forward. "That was too easy, now to slaughter the rest of you traitors." The sound of her boots clicking against the rocky floor multiplied the pressure in the vicinity, as her raspy voice shook the hearts of everyone around. As the dust cleared, Irene paused in her tracks. Her eyebrows furrowed as she spotted a silvery triangular-shaped covering that was only a few feet away from the walls of the structure that had been dented completely. "So you're still alive?" she voiced with a slightly surprised tone. "I'm not so easy to kill," a feminine voice responded from within the silvery encapsulation. Thryriath, the silvery encapsulation which seemed to have shielded a number of them from the explosions, slowly dissolved. Matilda stepped forward while the dissolved silvery liquid floated and turned into orbs around her. Behind her were Riol and Ulla, who both had silver-like armor covering their entire being thanks to Matilda. "So he is indeed important. I know who to kill now," Ivrene voiced as her figure suddenly blurred. Twice she appeared beside Riol with 2 3-inch needles in her grasp which she proceeded to stab sideways. "She's fast." Matilda's eyes widened as she turned around as quickly as she could. "Pa!" Matilda grabbed Ivrene's hand before the needles could make contact with Riol, stopping her in place with sheer strength. Unfortunately, even at that, both needles emitted yellow lights at their bases and streaked forward. PRRKK, both needles poked through the surface of the armor surrounding Riol's figure, but were unable to pierce through any further. However, before Matilda could take any action, boom! Boom! Another explosion rang out, this time twice as powerful as the last. Matilda and everyone surrounding Riol instantly got blasted away, Ivrene included. Bang! Matilda's body slammed into the other end of the wall, blasting through it and causing a small underground collapse. As the dust slowly began to clear up, people could be seen sprawled across the place bleeding from their orifices. Riol grunted heavily as he struggled to get up beside a wall that had come crashing down. "Grandpa Riol!" Ulla dived out of nowhere and pushed him out of the way as a gigantic piece of rock fell from above. Bang! It slammed onto his initial spot and cracked open. "Thank you, kiddo," Riol voiced with an appreciative tone as he stared at his bleeding ankle. It turned out that he had taken damage from the blast, and some areas on the armored silvery suit had come off. "Your luck has run out." Ivrene's figure suddenly appeared before them with glowing yellow dots surrounding her figure. Underscore 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 underscore. "Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Damn it!" Tolda yelled as he ran from a bunch of guards in a rocky-looking hallway. By his side was a figure in a guard outfit as well, holding onto a rhombus-shaped piece of machinery. "How in the name of Aphris did they find out?" Twenvik yelled back as they ran as quickly as they could. "You're the guard! You tell me!" Tolda screamed in both anger and fear. Twi projectiles from the weaponry the guards had in their possession were being fired at these two as they fled from the disaster. "We have to make sure we protect the separator machine till old Riol gets down here to work it," Twenvik stated as they moved in a zigzag format to evade the projectiles. "Death to the traitors!" the guards behind chanted as they relentlessly pursued. "How are we going to do that with all of these guards chasing after us?" Tolda cried out. Screeve, the entire place suddenly began to quake as they helplessly stooped forward. "That is not good." Twenvik's eyes darted upwards with a tone of concern. "What? What isn't?" Tolda asked with shaky breath while wondering if things could get any worse than they already were. "They closed the rafters," Twenvik answered. "What?" Tolda voiced with a tone of confusion. "The palace dungeon has been locked down, which means they won't be able to get down here. They are trapped," Twenvik yelled with a tone of urgency as they closed in on an intersection up ahead. "Okay, that did get worse." Tolda felt like giving up the moment he heard this. The moment they arrived at the intersection, a massive hole could be spotted further ahead along with a massive stairway that led upwards and downwards in a spiral format. About 100 feet above, Twenvik could spot the rocky wall in a horizontal format that acted as a barrier blocking anyone from leaving or coming down. Towards their right was a small path with a ledge that one could fall off if they weren't careful, and towards the left was another one that looked just like the one on the right. The guards behind were still chasing and drawing closer, but at that point Twenvik came to a decision. "Take it!" He handed the machine in his grasp to Tolda, whose eyes widened with disbelief. What th? Before he could say anything, Twenvik cut him off. Head left and keep going till you see a turn on your right. It should lead you further downwards. Keep heading straight till you surpass 2 turnings, and when you arrive at the one that leads to your right, take it and keep moving forward till you arrive before a massive decorated door. Twenvik narrated very quickly. Wait, left, right, forward, 4. Tolda's eyes were rolling in confusion as he voiced out, but Twenvik cut him short again. There's no time, that is where Her Majesty and the rest of them are kept. Before you get there the drugs should have kicked in. Twenvik yelled before speeding in the direction of the stairway. I must unlock that for them to have access. He pointed at the restricting rocky walls upwards while making his way up the stairs. Wait, what drugs? Did you say right after left? Oh, for the love of Aphris testicles! Tolda yelled in defeat as he noticed Twenvik's figure ascending the stairs at a quick pace. Chapter 1351. Who snitched? Wait, what drugs? Did you say right after left? Oh, for the love of Aphris testicles! Tolda yelled in defeat as he noticed Twenvik's figure ascending the stairs at a quick pace. Damn it! He cried out after noticing that the guards behind him were now only a few feet away. Tolda quickly turned towards the path on the left with the separator machine in his grasp. As the guard arrived at the 2 initial stopping points, they separated into 2 smaller groups. One part chased after Twenvik while the other followed Tolda. Twenvik's legs turned into some kind of spring as he reached a particular distance. Twi-high he began bouncing from one height of the stairs to another, increasing the distance between himself and the guards. Damn the gods, there are more of them up there! Twenvik cursed as he spotted guards close to the area where the lockdown was initiated. Underscore 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 above the closed-off part of the palace dungeon. A green armored large figure stood before a person sprawled out on the ground, bleeding profusely. On the side, another feminine figure could be spotted missing half of her entire body. Her listless eyes, which were laced with horror, depicted what her final moments looked like. Ulla! No, you merciless animal! Riol was overcome with anger and pain as he stared at the incomplete corpse of the female beside him. Ulla had gotten in the way before Evrene could slaughter Riol, so she ended up bearing the misfortune instead. Merciless? Traitors to the throne deserve no mercy, Evrene stated with an undisturbed expression, while the needles floating around her emitted a brighter yellow glow. You can go join her in the afterlife if you miss her that much. Evrene's masculine voice turned deeper as her left eye emitted a menacing yellow glow. Thigh-high, just as she flicked her fingers forward, a gigantic piece of silvery rock smashed into her. Bang! Her entire figure was sent flying as a part of her armor cracked open. Little pieces fell off as her body traveled across the air and slammed into the other side of the wall. Matilda appeared before old Riol and took a glance at Ulla's corpse before gritting her teeth in rage. Riol shook his head, confirming Ulla's death. Looks like you survived my initial attack, Evrene voiced with a low tone as she cleaned off the blood leaking out the side of her mouth while her body was slumped against the dented rocky wall on the other side. You damn bitch! The entire vicinity quaked intensely as Matilda unleashed her full energy. She was only out for a second, yet upon her return, Ulla was dead. She was a young and energetic girl dragged into this mess due to the governance of Dios and his 5 generals. Unforgivable! Unforgivable! Matilda had a newfound zeal to slaughter every single one of them. That's some power you have there, but it won't be enough, Evrene said while standing to her feet with more needles appearing around her. You have protected that person 3 times now, which confirms my suspicion. He must be the mentioned important one. I'm guessing once I kill him this whole operation falls apart. Evrene's statement caused Matilda to pause in her tracks. They know. Who could have snitched on us? Matilda couldn't help but think they got betrayed by someone in their circle. Riol was truly to be protected since he was the only one who could activate the separator machine he built. Without him, everything would get ruined. Who did? It doesn't matter right now. I need to come up with a solution. If the Dios is not here by now or hasn't tampered with his connection to the slave shackles, maybe he is not aware. Maybe they haven't gotten the information to him yet. Maybe we still have a little bit of time. Matilda's eyes shone with determination as she let out a long breath. Seeing Ula like that had made her lose her calm, but the brief moment of retrospective thinking helped her regain it to an extent. She was still pissed, but at the very least she had it under control now. I will end your life and get Riol down there. This planet will be free from bondage. Silvery liquid gathered around her figure, transforming into a massive spear as she and Evrene prepared to lunge at each other. At this pivotal moment, the entire structure suddenly began quaking once more. Both Matilda and Evrene paused as they recognized this. It wasn't due to any of them unleashing their energy. It was because the raft was opening. Screeve bam! Everyone managed to get out of the way before the rocky walls underneath them could open completely. Some corpses belonging to the silhouettes that had infiltrated with Matilda fell through the hole after the lockdown was lifted. Only half a dozen of them were left at this point, minus Matilda and old Riol. Matilda's eyes widened with a hopeful look as she grabbed Riol beside her and leaped towards the stairway on the other side where the others in all black outfits could be spotted. At this same moment, a person in a guard outfit climbed to their level with an extremely fatigued expression. His braided black hair seemed to have tangled and was very rough as his face twitched repeatedly. Twenvik! Get him down there immediately! Matilda ignored how tired he looked and handed Riol over to him. Unconscious guards could be seen scattered across the stairways, which depicted what went down before the lockdown was lifted. Immediately after Twenvik received Riol, for needles streaked across the air at incredible speed. Matilda waved her right hand and a wall of solid silver materialized before them. Go now! She yelled while thrusting her right hand forward. The entire wall shifted upwards based on her command and exploded a moment later. The vicinity quaked intensely as rocks began to fall from above. Twenvik had Riol in his grasp as he bounced down the stairs as quickly as he could, moving from side to side to avoid the rocky projectiles descending from above. No! 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 Today is not the day I die! Twenvik yelled as he managed to evade one massive falling rock after the other with the troops in all black following from behind. Matilda stared downwards from her position above and let out a sigh of relief. I need to take care of her before she becomes a problem, not like she already isn't. Matilda recalled the silvery pieces scattered across the place and leaped forward. Evrene also charged forward at this point, and they clashed. Bang! Matilda's spear-shaped silvery weapon was stopped by a wall of glowing yellowish needles. Evrene flicked her finger, and tens of these needles dove forward. Matilda leaped backward as she channeled her bloodline. Swai, her figure blurred as she swerved sideways continuously at insane speed. The needles missed her, while she created more silvery spears around her, and swung her arm forward. Thwaya, the spears streaked in Evrene's direction, while gathering an insane amount of energy around them. Boom! 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 It sounded like explosions were going off as the spears collided with multiple clusters of glowing yellow needles. The surrounding walls had already crumbled and now the stairways were taking the damage. There was no doubt that the entire infrastructure would come crumbling down if both of them continued. Meanwhile, in another location, a 9-foot-tall Abrukese male in a red shell-like armor could be seen trotting into a beautiful environment with a serious expression. General Boral! The guards in the vicinity instantly bowed the moment they spotted him. Where is the Emperor? He inquired while climbing a small stairway made from smooth, glowing green stones. The Emperor doesn't wish to be disturbed right now. He has asked that we let no one into the throne room. One of the guards answered. This is a matter of grave importance. Should anyone stand in my path, they will surely meet their end. General Boral didn't stop for a second as he waltzed into the massive structure which was constructed to look like the upper body of a sharp-looking Abrukese ancestor. His figure was so quick even though he was only walking. He was out of sight before the guards could even raise their heads. Borel! A loud and domineering masculine voice reverberated across the vicinity, as General Borel arrived before a massive throne. The throne was magnificently made from expensive materials that made it difficult for anyone to describe its beauty upon sight. Its backrest area was nearly 20 feet in height and 7 feet in width with circular teal and shiny black designs. Its armrest was shaped like a weapon, and even its sides looked like all sorts of ornaments were glued to it. The 9 feet tall being seated on the throne with a straight expression had blue-colored skin just like the one standing before him. A visible 1-inch horn could be spotted beneath his chin area, and he boasted a half-charred face that made him look even more devious. Chapter 1352 The Underground Garden Prison. He was clad in a majestic royal blue robe with green patterns. The one sitting on this throne was none other than Emperor Dios. General Borel lowered one knee to the ground before speaking. "We have a problem," he stated. Emperor Dios' eyes squinted before replying. "I sensed something was amiss. Tell me everything." Underscore 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 underscore. The palace dungeon. The initial destruction and multiple quakes that plagued the place had come to a stop. A large part of the dungeon stairway had been obliterated, and a large area of the walls were missing, leaving only holes that further led underground. A figure stood about 3 feet deep within the structure with disbelief in her eyes. Her armor had been blown off in most parts, exposing her feminine skin, which was now reddened with blood. Staggering, she took a step backward as her eyes went from the female figure completely clad in silvery armor, down to her body. She sighted a large, visible, hole in her belly. Evrene turned her head to stare at the massive, silver drill-like projectile embedded into the wall behind her. Thighs steam erupted from the hole in her belly region as the silvery, drill-shaped weapon happened to be extremely hot. "Your mistake was thinking I reached my limit with how I can manipulate my abilities. I can apply it in ways that your mind will never be able to comprehend," Matilda voiced as she stretched her hand forward. The massive, silvery, drill-like weapon pulled out of the wall and transformed into a flaming sword that sliced Evrene's arms off while returning to Matilda's grasp. She caught it and swung it sideways, causing the blood on the blade to splash across a part of the stairway. Prior to that, she had made one of her silver projectiles tiny enough that it couldn't be seen or even sensed. By the time it went through Evrene's protective cluster of needles, it was too late for her to detect. The silvery drill suddenly turned massive the moment it pierced through her belly, and caught flames before drilling through her, all in an instant. "Remember I told you your power wasn't enough," Even muttered weakly. "I wasn't talking about myself." Her voice trailed off as she gave up the ghost mid-speech. Anxiety and fear instantly spread across Matilda's face as she stared at Evrene's lifeless body that continued to remain in a standing position even after her death. Bang! A massive blast suddenly rang out as a hole appeared above the structure. Fwaiwaihayi, before Matilda could react, a figure descended from above and appeared beside her with incredible speed. A glowing red blade was already swinging towards her right side with incredible energy spreading from it as it cut through the air. Matilda hastily raised her right arm to protect herself as silver covering materialized around her arm to form a double layer of protection. Her eyes widened as the blade sliced through the silvery layers of protection with ease, cleaving through her right arm in the process. While she was still in a state of disorientation, another figure had descended from above, but this one continued falling towards the bottom of the dungeon. At the bottom of the palace dungeon, a figure in a black outfit stood before a 30-foot-tall door with weird designs on it. He had a rhombus-shaped piece of machinery in his grasp. He turned around to stare at the scene behind him. Guards were strewn across the ground and passed out. If one were to look at the path that led towards the left behind, they would find the scenery to be exact as well. "So this is what he meant when he said drugs," Tolda voiced with a tone of realization. It turned out that Twenvik had laced the meals off all the guards around with sleeping drugs. Since he was also a guard, He was able to successfully pull this off based on Matilda's request. Phew, I thought I would meet my end after reaching here. He let out a sigh of relief as he moved closer to the massive decorated door. He paused when he was only 1 foot away with a look of hesitation. What if guards are waiting on the other end of the door? I should wait for them before thinking of going in. He decided to wait for Twenvik to arrive. Toldus sat on the rocky floor for a couple of minutes before he felt the entire place rumbling. He must have opened it, great! Tolda had a relieved expression on his face as he spoke. 3 of the massive door before him suddenly sprung open as well. His eyes widened as he swiftly picked up the rhombus-shaped piece of machinery and ran to the side to hide himself. He let out heavy breaths as he stood by the left side of the large door and waited. After waiting for nearly a minute, he realized that no one stepped out of the door. He slowly tiptoed to the side and peeked from the ledge of the door. His eyes widened in disbelief once more as what appeared in his line of sight was something he hadn't expected in the slightest. Within the door was a heavenly garden with all sorts of beautiful greenery and an artificial sun located within an artificial sky. A bunch of purple-skinned figures in white garments could be seen moving around. This is supposed to be a prison for Her Majesty and the rest of the royal family and guards who survived? Toldus still couldn't believe his eyes. I'd rather live here than on the surface, he muttered before realizing that they didn't have any free will. No guards. He noticed there were no guards around but then realized that without free will they couldn't escape even if the opportunity presented itself. If only I knew how to activate the separator machine, he thought with a look of cluelessness. At this same moment, the sound of multiple footsteps suddenly pandered into his eardrums. Guards? Tolda instantly became scared and began to take steps backward. In a couple of moments, a group of 8 appeared in his line of sight. He squinted his eyes for a second before beaming up with a smile. Twenvik! Old Riol! He yelled with a tone of excitement. Quick! Quick! He added as they ran as quickly as their legs could carry them. They soon arrived before the door as well, but this was no time to admire the view within. Activate it quick! Tolda said with a tone of urgency as he passed the piece of machinery to old Riol. Riol immediately took it from his possession and set it down. Without wasting a single second he began tapping on the multiple buttons on the piece of machinery. Don't you need to get closer? Twenvik questioned. As long as they are within a 1-mile radius it should work, Riol answered while focusing on working the machinery. Now shut up and let me work, he uttered before Twenvik could ask another question. Pat. 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 Almost there, he said after 10 seconds had gone by. It should be. Fuwumsh, an unexpected situation suddenly occurred as old Riol's entire body was suddenly yanked across the air by an unfathomable energy. Old Riol! They yelled as he got dragged into the garden prison. This was when they noticed that every single royal within the door had glowing red eyes. In their midst was a beautiful purple-skinned female with long flowing black hair and a black mark on her forehead. Her left arm was outstretched, and old Riol floated before her in a daze. Your Majesty, no! Tolda yelled. They're being controlled, which means the Emperor is aware. Twenvik's jaw dropped as he came to this realization. Everyone else's eyes widened as well as they heard this. We need to get him back from them right away, Twenvik yelled as he bounced forward like a spring while the others ran in haphazardly. Due to their lack of coordination and numbers, Daria couldn't focus on every single one of them at the same time. This helped Twenvik's approach as he bounced once more while the others were getting swooned around. He descended from the air right above Daria and sent a kick at her face, causing her to crash towards the ground. Sorry, Your Majesty, he voiced with an apologetic tone as he grabbed old Riol and turned around. I got him, he yelled while bouncing forward once more. At this moment, an unexpected occurrence suddenly played out. Thwoosh, a burst of wind whooshed past them and Twenvik stared at his arm in a daze while he was still in midair. He mumbled as he noticed it was empty. Not only was old man Riol missing but even his entire arm was gone. Oh! He cried in pain as he dropped from the air with blood gushing uncontrollably from his shoulder, which was missing an arm. If this person dies, that machine cannot be operated. Am I right? A domineering voice suddenly reverberated across the vicinity. Chapter 1353. Don't think about leaving here alive. If this person dies, that machine cannot be operated. Am I right? A domineering voice suddenly reverberated across the vicinity. The entire place went quiet for an instant as immense tension caused the atmosphere to stiffen. Every single living creature within the environment had a fear plastered across their faces as they struggled to breathe. Emperor Dios! Twenvik and Tolda voiced as sweat dribbled down their faces. Don't! Tolda stretched his hand out towards old Riol, but before he could take a step further. Pop! Old Riol's head had exploded into smithereens, raining blood and mushy brain matter onto the garden greenery. The mouths of everyone hung open as they witnessed the scene. Immense fear gripped their hearts as they watched old Riol's headless body fall to the ground. Emperor Dios slowly took steps forward and even trampled upon the headless corpse as he approached the machine on the ground. They all watched while gulping down saliva. What were they even supposed to do in the face of such an opposition? Fight him? They wouldn't even be able to lay a finger on him before they met their end. Emperor Dios didn't need to squat. The rhombus-shaped machine lifted off the ground and landed in his grasp. His death makes this useless now. That ends you lot's futile attempt to sabotage my reign, Emperor Dios said with an expressionless face. You don't think you can? One of the figures in all black struggled to move while speaking. Screeve, he suddenly noticed that his vision was splitting. One view was headed towards the left and the other towards the right. These was the last word he uttered before everything turned black. I didn't say you could speak, Emperor Dios stated with a tone of unbridled indifference. The other five watched in horror as the one who had tried to speak earlier got divided into two halves. The greenery around them had been drenched in a reddish-brown color, causing the air to reek of a strong metallic stench. The pressure and fear in the vicinity was almost double as Twenvik clenched his empty shoulder tightly while shuddering in pain. What can we do? If only I could get the separator machine, maybe I could try working it since old Riol has done most of what is needed. Twenvik tried to remain calm in the face of the unbeatable adversity. The major goal still remained freeing Daria and the other royals. He wanted to make sure they achieved that at the very least so that old Riol's death wouldn't be in vain. He looked over to Toldu and the others, trying to see if he could get any of their attention, but they were too far gone. Their eyes displayed just how frightened they were as their bodies shuddered as well. I will have your families lined up to watch you all suffer the consequences of going against my rule. You will all be stripped of clothing and tortured before the general public. I will have the Ravila beasts pluck out your eyeballs and feast on your intestines alive. You will wish for death, but it won't come to save you lots from the gruesome pain I shall inflict on your bodies, minds and souls. Emperor Dios kept speaking with a tone that caused everyone to shudder even more. I have to try something at least. Twenvik steeled his heart before gathering strength from his lower body since they were still intact. When I am... Emperor Dios was still speaking when Twenvik's body suddenly catapulted forward. Fool! Emperor Dios voiced with a calm tone before reaching out to grab Twenvik by the neck. Twenvik's body suddenly twisted in an unimaginable angle, completely taking Emperor Dios by surprise. He ended up grabbing Twenvik's lower half instead. However, Twenvik made use of this opportunity to grab the machine on Emperor Dios' other hand and turned his lower half into a complete tissue spring. Thwoosh! He sprung forward with incredible speed while the machine was in his possession. However, Emperor Dios still had his hand wrapped around one of Twenvik's thighs. Twenvik knew he couldn't get away without making any sacrifices, which was why he sprung forward with a force that was higher than what his body could handle. Rip! His entire left leg was ripped off as he finally got free of Emperor Dios' grasp. A trail of blood was left across the air as his body traveled forward with incredible speed. Shit, what do I press, huh? Tap. 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 While in midair, he tapped a bunch of buttons. He had no idea what he was doing, but he continued with it as his body passed a height of 100 feet, and he began to descend. Activate. A green button suddenly lit up, telling him to press it to finally activate the machine. Twenvik's eyes widened in astonishment as he instantly pushed his finger forward, but at the last moment, a figure suddenly appeared before him in midair. Pa! A loud slap reverberated across the vicinity as Twenvik was swatted down like a fly before he could tap the activate button. Bang! He slammed onto the ground below heavily, forming a crater in the process. Twenvik! Tolda yelled in horror as he dove forward. Within the crater, Twenvik was bleeding profusely. His other arm was gone as well, and now he was left with only a single limb. His face had turned grayish despite being smeared with blood. It was obvious that he was on the verge of death. Tolda lifted his head slightly with tears in his eyes. Twenvik, hey, stay with me! He yelled while tapping his face gently after noticing that his eyes were closing up. Core! Twenvik coughed out blood as his eyes flickered with despair. I tried my best, T. Twenvik muttered weakly. You shouldn't have done that, hey. Tolda couldn't stop tears from streaming down his face. Bam! Emperor Dios landed before them with the separator machine in his grasp. Yes, you shouldn't have. Emperor Dios' voice before clasping his hands together casually. Crudely, the separator machine was instantly smashed to bits. Tolda and the others stared at the fallen pieces as the last vestiges of their hopes got snuffed out. It's over, Twenvik muttered as his eyes finally shut. This ends your foolhardy operation. Prepare to be punished. Emperor Dios turned around while speaking as guards suddenly began to troop into the surroundings. The guards quickly went from tens to hundreds to thousands in just a few seconds. It truly is over, Tolda said with a defeated expression. Looks like I arrived a little later than expected. A loud voice suddenly rang out from the entry point of the garden prison. It completely took everyone by surprise as they didn't sense the figure at the entry point until he spoke. It was like he didn't exist beforehand, since the guards had been trooping in without spotting him there till he spoke. Emperor Dios paused in his steps as he stared at the newly arrived figure. The figure had a cone-shaped head with one large shade on his face. His 7-foot figure had a majestic dark cloak draped around him. The inner white robe wrapped tightly around his frame looked so exquisite one could almost see their reflection on it. That's... Tolda's eyes widened in surprise as he recognized the figure just like everyone else around did. Baron Diov, what are you doing here? Emperor Dios questioned while knitting his eyes. I am just doing my work as an investigator, Emperor. Is this how you treat your subjects? Baron Diov inquired while stepping forward. You are supposed to leave today, Baron. You received my gifts already. Turn a blind eye to this. Emperor Dios finally had a tone of concern in his voice. Maybe I would have done that, but I have had a change of heart. You can have your gifts back. Baron Diov snapped his finger. Zing 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 zing, crate-like boxes appeared all over the place. These were the same boxes that were given to him at the dining table. What do you mean by this? Emperor Dios, who did not seem to be aware of the whole situation, questioned with his expression growing with concern. What do you mean by what do I mean? I just returned your gifts, dumbass, Baron Diov said with an unbothered tone. Dumbass? Baron Diov doesn't speak like that. A red flag instantly appeared in Emperor Dios' mind. I am on their side, Baron Diov added. Does that mean you are my enemy? Immense energy suddenly began to gather around Emperor Dios as he spoke. Obviously. Am here to save the princess, or is she supposed to be a queen now? Baron Diov paused when he was only a few feet from Emperor Dios. And how do you intend to do that? Now that you have revealed your true intentions, don't think about leaving here alive. Chapter 1354. He is not Baron Diov. I won't let you bring the Alliance army to my doorsteps. Guards surrounded Baron Diov the moment Emperor Dios said that and awaited his instruction. I shouldn't have to use this for an enemy of your level, but... They all watched as a strange-looking hourglass with golden sands appeared in Baron Diov's grasp. You destroyed something, I need to get it back, Baron Diov said while turning the hourglass upside down and throwing it into the air. What? Before Emperor Dios or any of the guards around could make a move, a golden glow suddenly burst forth, causing every single living thing in the universe to come to a stop. The golden sands in the hourglass began pouring down in small quantities. How many minutes ago do you reckon that happened? Baron Diov, who was obviously Gustav in disguise, inquired. Maybe 10 minutes will be enough, the system responded internally. I got here 15 minutes earlier than the timer I was given because I saw Matilda getting her ass handed to her. Yet I was still late. Gustav shook his head. Careful not to use the ancient hourglass regularly. Remember, it feeds off your life force energy, the system cautioned. Yeah, I'm aware. It may be mine, but it's still a very powerful sacred item. This time was inevitable since he destroyed the machine, Gustav said with a tone of understanding. That's enough, Gustav said while reaching out to grab the ancient hourglass. The moment he held it, the sands stopped pouring. Everything in the vicinity suddenly began to undergo a state of reversal. However, this wasn't happening just here alone. It was happening in every single galaxy in the universe. Gustav watched the Emperor move back and ascend into the air with the pieces of the separated machine merging and returning to its original state. Twenvik's limbs also returned with the exception of his right arm as he ascended across the air with the machine in his grasp. Time soon rewound to the point where Twenvik was back on the ground with a missing arm and Emperor Dios had the machine in his grasp. It's slowing down. I thought you said 10 minutes will be enough? Gustav questioned with a tone of dissatisfaction. Looks pretty okay to me, the system answered. The creator of the machine was already killed here, Gustav pointed out. So? One could picture the system shrugging its shoulders with the tone used. I have to use this again then, Gustav voiced while holding up the hourglass. Don't. Didn't I just warn you about frequent usage? The system opposed with a strong tone. He is still gonna be dead when time resumes, Gustav stated. What does that matter? You can operate the machine. If Twenvik, who has no prior experience with technology, could do it, what stops you from succeeding? You can't be that stupid, or can you? The system voiced with a tone of apprehension. That's not the issue, Gustav answered. Oh, don't tell me you're starting to become benevolent. Don't play God at your own detriment, Gustav. Let the dead lie, the system added. Shut up. Gustav stepped forward while lowering his hand as the ancient hourglass vanished. Time was about to resume. He arrived before Emperor Dios, who was still in a paused state, and yanked the separator machine from his grasp. In the next moment, time returned to normal, and at this point Emperor Dios was speaking. I will have your families lined up to watch you all suffer the consequences of going against my rule. You will all be stripped of clothing and tortured before the general public. I will have the Ravela beasts pluck out your eyeballs and feast on your ants. He suddenly paused as he noticed something. His hand was empty. Where is the machine? Emperor Dios wondered out loud with a confounded expression. It was at this moment that everyone noticed a new person in their midst. Is that? Twenvik and Tolda's eyes both widened at the same time. The newly arrived person had a cone-shaped head with one large shade on his face. His 7-feet figure had a majestic dark cloak draped around him. The white robe on the inside that wrapped tightly around his frame looked so exquisite one could almost see their reflection on it, and he stood a few feet away from Emperor Dios with the separator machine in his grasp. Baron Diov, what are you doing here? How do you have that? Emperor Dios instantly became alarmed. Not only was he unable to sense Baron Diov's presence until a while ago, he also couldn't comprehend how the machine was taken from him so easily without him noticing. He knew investigators were always powerful, but not this powerful. I am just answering your question. You asked me how I intended to rescue them. As Baron Diov spoke, Emperor Dios' face was filled with confusion as he tried to recall them having any conversation like that. This is how. Baron Diov tapped on multiple buttons on the separator machine, and in the next instant a small green light displayed activate. No! Emperor Dios moved swiftly in a bid to stop Baron Diov, but before he could even take a step forward, Omicron M tap. Thwaish, the machine sent forth a surge of white energy that spread across the surroundings in an instant. Emperor Dios arrived before Baron Diov and thrusted his fist forward. Bang! The machine was blasted to smithereens, but it was already late. Daria, who was positioned 50 feet behind with the original royal guards and the last 2 royal family members around her, suddenly regained clarity. Her red eyes turned normal like the time they shared a meal with Baron Diov, and the same happened to the other royals beside her. Baron Diov, who held Emperor Dios' fist up to stop his punch from reaching him, looked into his eyes and spoke. "It's over, Dios," Baron Diov stated. "It is not over just because you freed them from my slave shackles. I have had enough. You all will perish here tonight." Emperor Dios yelled as energy began to build up around him. "No one perishes on my watch," Baron Diov stated with an authoritative tone as he continued holding on to Emperor Dios' fist. Emperor Dios tried to free himself, but no matter how much he tried, he couldn't make Baron Diov budge. "Let's step outside for a bit." Twihish, both their figures suddenly vanished, leaving Daria, Toldu, Twenvik and the others there. "That is Gustav Crimson," Toldu stated with a look of astonishment. "We're saved." "Ha!" Twenvik yelled as he began laughing in relief. "We're saved." Everyone else within the underground garden prison began jubilating as well. "Your Majesty, are you okay?" Toldu and a few others in all black quickly ran towards the purple-skinned beautiful lady with black markings on her forehead. "I'm fine. I'm fine. Looks like Matilda succeeded in freeing us." Tears of joy began streaming down her face as the other royals also looked at each other in disbelief. "Yes, she did it. Daria, you're you again. Serene, you too." The 3 last royal family members hugged one another. While they were still in a state of celebration, hundreds of guards trooped in with weapons. The 10 original royal guards who had regained their freedom moved to Daria's front to protect her. Daria patted one of the soldiers' shoulders from behind, who then proceeded to move away and give her space to pass through. Daria stood before everyone as the black marking on her forehead lit up. "I am Empress Daria. Bow," she uttered with an authoritative tone. The thousands of guards at the entrance of the underground garden prison instantly fell to their knees. Bam! 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 They found themselves unable to go against her command. As they peered forward in disbelief, they realized that she was the true Empress, the heir to the throne, and she had regained her free will. "Tell the people of Abrukes that I have returned." Her unwaveringly powerful tones spread across the environment like a divine mandate. Above the surface, bang! 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 Boom! Sounds of multiple clashes rang out as powerful figures streaked across the night sky while exchanging numerous blows. It looked like the sky was being ripped apart as sounds akin to 100 thunderbolts rang out vibrantly. The grounds quaked in the wake of the battle, and the natives found themselves unable to sleep. Thwoosh, after another loud clash rang out, the figures in mid-air separated. On one side, a figure looked untouched, while on the other side, 2 figures looked roughened up. "How is he so powerful?" Emperor Dios yelled to the one beside him, who was clad in a red shell-like armor. "My lord, I was trying to tell you, but you didn't wait to listen to everything I had to say," General Boyle stated while letting out hurried breaths. "What?" Emperor Dios had an irked expression as he uttered. "He isn't Baron Diov. He is Gustav Crimson," General Boyle revealed with a tone of wariness. Chapter 1355, The Planet Destroyer? "He isn't Baron Diov. He is Gustav Crimson," General Boyle revealed with a tone of wariness. "Who is that?" Emperor Dios questioned with a clueless tone. "The one wanted by the Alliance. The youngster who almost became the champion of Aesop," General Boyle yelled. Emperor Dios had a look of confusion for a couple of moments before his face suddenly lit up with an expression of realization. "The Planet Destroyer?" Emperor Dios voiced with a loud tone. General Boyle nodded in affirmation. Emperor Dios turned to stare at the figure in dark robes floating ahead of them with an extremely wary expression. That is him? Emperor Dios was still in a state of shock. He wasn't one to care about the state of things on other planets, or concern himself with the shenanigans of the Alliance, but there was no one who hadn't heard one or two things about what happened with planet Ozius. As one of the leaders of the Alliance, planet Ozius' destruction was widespread, and amidst all the noise, one person's name would always come up. Gustav Crimson. Well, since you know who I am now, I guess there's no point in maintaining this form. Baron Dia voiced from the other end while his physical appearance began undergoing a visible change. By the time the transformation was complete, what appeared in their line of sight was the face of an extremely enchanting male figure. His long, dirty blonde hair looked so silky, anyone would easily long to caress them. His jawline was so well chiseled that not even the prettiest of male models on Earth would be able to contend. His lips so perfectly outlined that even beautiful girls would grow jealous. However, his eyes bore an incredible cold and piercing gaze that would make even the demons shiver at the sight of them. The moment Gustav took of the shade covering his face, Emperor Dios and General Boyle subconsciously moved back. Those were no ordinary eyes. The energy emancipating from his figure had suddenly undergone a great change. Emperor Dios now understood why they were losing. Where is Quasp? Emperor Dios asked. He is supposed to have gotten the message and arrived here. I don't know why he is late, General Boyle answered. Don't worry about your other general. I took care of him on my way here. Gustav voiced from the other end with the side of his lips curving upwards. What do you mean by? Before Emperor Dios could complete his statement, Gustav snapped his finger. Pa! A teal-colored bald head, smeared with bloodstains, appeared in his grasp. Emperor Dios and General Boyle's eyes instantly widened as they stared at the head with looks of disbelief. That is the strongest of my 5 generals. How did he? Emperor Dios was taken even more aback now. Turns out he already knew the full story before you did, Dios. He came after me immediately instead of heading here, nearly slaughtering my daughter in the process. Or rather, fake daughter, Gustav said while recalling what happened before he headed for this location. Matilda is in trouble. I am going to help her, Gustav said to Circe within their accommodation room. But father, the timer says 20 minutes left, Circe voiced while pointing at the holographic projection before them. Yeah, but she is in trouble. Gotta step in so she doesn't get killed, Gustav voiced while heading for the entrance. Stay here, Gustav instructed before vanishing. He instantly reappeared nearly 1,000 feet above the massive structure. Hover has been activated. Gustav was about to turn around and fly away when he sensed something. He paused in that moment, and a blue star streaked from the east corner of the sky. Bang! It crashed into the structure below at insane speed, infiltrating it in the blink of an eye. A powerful surge of energy had sent everything within a 10,000 feet mile radius flying. The mountains around crumbled and intense winds blew across the place, leaving only a bit of the accommodation area left. It wasn't a star. Gustav's eyes squinted as he descended immediately. Fly high. Where is he? The moment he landed within the accommodation area whose top had been completely blasted off, he came across an unnerving scene. A bald-headed teal-skinned male in blue armor, and a massive 6 feet long axe strapped to his back, had Circe's neck in his grasp. General Quasp! That is one of the Emperor guests. A few guards who had survived the destruction of this infrastructure voiced out the moment they realized who the perpetrator was. They are traitors, the bald-headed teal-skinned figure responded with a strong tone. Do not interfere, he added with a commanding tone. The guards instantly backed away upon hearing this. Circe was held against a cracked wall as she struggled to free herself from his grasp. Frost had spread from her body to that of General Quasp's, but he remained unaffected by it. I said, where is he? General Quasp inquired once more with a tone that left no room for negotiation. Gustav stood a couple feet behind them but didn't move. Instead, he watched the scene with a curious glare. I do, enti know. Circe coughed multiple times while trying to get words out. You will meet your maker if you don't tell me where he went right away, the bald-headed teal-skinned male figure stated once more. Cersei's entire body was emitting a lot of frost at this moment, and even the vicinity had ice all over which were turning into spikes. Massive icy spikes formed in mid-air and shot towards the assailant in the next moment. Bam! 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 Despite their size and incredible power, they all got smashed to pieces the moment they made contact with the assailant's back. Such weakness! Do you believe the likes of you could cause even me even the slightest injury? Ha ha, fool! He laughed maniacally before tightening his grasp around Cersei's neck and leaping into the air. Fly high! They ascended up to 10,000 feet across the air in an instant, piercing through the night clouds like rocket launchers. Gustav looked up with an indifferent expression as he noticed their descent. Thwowish General Quasp had Cersei face downward as they descended from the height of over 10,000 feet without slowing. Boom! A large crash rang out, bringing with it a powerful shockwave that sent a blast so strong, everything within a 10-mile radius was leveled. Gustav stood in the midst of this destruction as everything around him was obliterated. His robes flapped intensely, but he remained unscathed. He remained in a state of levitation as he stared down at the destruction before him. A large crater was situated below which he proceeded to descend into. In the middle of the crater was General Quasp atop Cersei, with his hands still wrapped around her throat. The frost surrounding Cersei's figure shattered, revealing her bloody body. She was bleeding from her head, eyes, nose, and mouth. It also seemed she had shattered a lot of bones internally. Her entire body looked battered. It is commendable that you survived that, but your body will be obliterated if I do it one more time. General Quasp ignored her hurried breathing and brought his face close to hers before asking once more. Where is he? Tell me if you wish to survive. Cersei's mouth opened slightly before turning into a smile. Hi. She giggled lightly, causing General Quasp's face to light up in anguish. Are you laughing at me? Such insolence! I will hack you to pieces and feed your remains to the beasts. General Quasp yelled while reaching for the axe strapped to his back. The massive 6-foot axe instantly lit up with a blue glow the moment he grabbed it. He raised it and swung it downwards at Cersei's figure, separating her into two halves. Huh! General Quasp uttered as he noticed that he only thought he swung the axe down successfully. His hand was still raised with the axe in his grasp and Cersei was still underneath him alive. He tried to lower his hand, but no matter how much he tried, he was unable to. He slowly turned his face around, and that was when he spotted the figure. The person he had been looking for all this time. Gustav Crimson! He yelled in anguish, forgetting that up until a moment ago he couldn't sense any presence. Gustav, who was still taking on the form of Baron Dialv, was a little surprised at the time. He didn't think the opposition was aware of his original identity. However, he still reacted calm with his fingers wrapped around the blade of the axe. He had moved to stop General Quasp from hacking Cersei since he decided this had gone on for long enough. How powerful is this axe? He voiced while yanking it out of General Quasp's grasp and kicking him forward. Bang! Chapter 1356 The end of a tyrannical reign. General Quasp instantly got sent flying and tumbled multiple times in midair before slamming into the wall of the crater. The glow on the axe dimmed the moment General Quasp stopped making contact with it. Does the axe blade get dull if it isn't in the hand of its owner? Gustav questioned, but he already knew the answer to this. You will never be able to use it to cut anything down, you bastard! General Quasp yelled from the other end as he jumped to his feet. I see. I have always wondered how it would feel to wield a dull axe. Let's see how sharp I can cut with this, Gustav voiced with a smirk. You can't. Before General Quasp could complete his statement, Gustav's figure suddenly appeared before him. Thwaish, a burst of wind spread in every direction, distracting General Quasp from noticing a part of his body flying across the air. Oh, look at that! I was aiming to slice you in two. This blade is truly blunt. General Quasp's eyes widened the moment Gustav uttered these words. His eyes darted around, searching his body, and then he finally noticed. "My hand! Arf!" he cried in horror, as he noticed that everything below his left elbow had gone missing. He couldn't comprehend how Gustav managed to not just slice through his arm, but his entire hand in one go with a blunt axe. Not to mention how sturdy his skin was, which would not get penetrated with a sharp blade. Impossible! It was like piercing a person with wood. "I wonder how sharp it would be if it was in the hand of its owner," Gustav voiced while reaching out. Fly-high, the cleaved-off hand floated off the ground and landed in his grasp. Genetic assimilation complete, Gustav's arm transformed into a replica of General Quasp's within seconds. He dropped the cleaved-off hand and placed the axe in his hand, which had adopted the look of General Quasp's arm. Thine guy. The axe immediately lit up with a blue glow, causing a sinister smile to appear on Gustav's face. "Would you look at that?" he muttered with a tone of interest. All this time, General Quasp watched with a look of horror. His mouth was still wide open as he couldn't find the words to say. "Now, let's see how sharp this blade truly is," Gustav said before swinging the glowing axe diagonally. "No!" A blinding blue light engulfed the vicinity, as a very sharp arc shot forward. Twi-hee-I, 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 twi-hee-I. The arc split into twos and from twos to fours. It kept replicating. In less than 3 seconds, 1,000,000 blue arcs had slashed forward, ripping everything in its path to pieces. Every piece of matter up ahead came crumbling down like dust, mixing with the pieces of the flesh, bones, and armor of General Quasp. The crater that had been formed in the ground increased by over tenfold as structures and mountains thousands of feet up ahead became collateral damage as well. While it looked like it had taken a lot of time for the slices to replicate, in actuality, it had taken only a moment. Amongst all the ruckus, General Quasp's head was the only thing that had survived the onslaught. This was because he had dashed forward at the last millisecond in a bid to save himself. Unfortunately, only his head got out of the slice range. Gustav had caught the head, which flew across the air after General Quasp's body got obliterated. "Thanks for the trophy," Gustav muttered before snapping his fingers. "Pa!" The head vanished in the next moment, and he turned around to head for Circe, who was half dead. A smile appeared on her face the moment she spotted Gustav in her line of vision. "Thank you, Daddy," she voiced out. "Did you know I was watching the whole time?" Gustav inquired. She shook her head weakly. "No." "Then, why did you refuse to tell him anything?" Gustav asked. "Because it would be a betrayal to Father. I would rather die than betray Father," Circe said with a tone of conviction. Gustav was taken aback by her response because he read Circe and discovered she was telling the truth. "We've only known each other for less than 2 weeks. Where did such a feeling come from?" He wondered, but now wasn't the time to ruminate on her words. Gustav squatted before her and placed a healing pill in her mouth. "How did he? Quasp would never go down so easily." Emperor Dios furrowed his brows as he peered forward. "He would have been a strong opponent if I hadn't taken him by surprise," Gustav replied while raising General Quasp's head. "Damn it! This is a difficult situation," General Boyle swore internally. "Say, would you two be able to handle an attack from this?" Gustav questioned as a massive 6-foot-long axe appeared in his grasp. "What? He has Quasp world-splitting axe?" General Boyle and Emperor Dios voiced simultaneously, and in the next moment, their faces were filled with even more disbelief as Gustav's right arm transformed into a replica of General Quasp's hand. The world-splitting axe emitted a bright blue glow as Gustav raised it. Wind began to gather immensely around the vicinity, causing both opponents to shrink back in fear. They knew how powerful and heavy the world-splitting axe was. A weapon as large as Gustav's entire body, yet raised with ease like a piece of paper. "Get him before he swings!" Emperor Dios shouted before dashing forward. Thwoosh, they both streaked forward, appearing before Gustav instantly. General Boyle grabbed the axe handle, while a large scarlet glowing sword materialized in Emperor Dios' grasp. Swayai, he swung sideways powerfully. Gustav's figure vanished, causing the blade to slice through thin air. The axe was left in General Boyle's grasp, who found it difficult to lift on his own, Gustav reappeared behind Emperor Dios and sent a fist hurling at his spine. Emperor Dios managed to react in time, raising the side of his sword to block the fist at the last moment. Power boost has been activated. Boom! The moment Gustav's fist collided with the sword, a loud thunderclap-like sound reverberated across the vicinity. Why Emperor Dios got pushed back by the unfathomable force of Gustav's punch and slammed into General Borel, causing both of them to get sent flying. He grabbed hold of the world-splitting axe which got blasted out of General Borel's grasp the moment both of them collided. The axe lit up once more, and he proceeded to swing downwards powerfully. Slash! A massive blue arc instantly ripped downwards, gathering so much energy that space twisted in its wake. The slash multiplied immediately, turning to millions of glowing blue lines descending from the sky like a divine punishment from the great heavens. Emperor! General Borel yelled as he put himself before Emperor Dios before the slashes hit. Tai Hien! Arg! He roared while thrusting his palm forward and shot out a powerful red beam at the descending powerful blue lines. Boom! 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 The sound of explosions and powerful collisions rang out for the next couple of seconds, syncing with the scream of a living being in turmoil. Gustav stood in midair, waiting for the smoke and debris to clear as the collision of attacks had reduced the vicinity to shambles. Still alive, good, Gustav muttered while snapping his finger. Pa! The axe in his grasp vanished as he descended from the sky. Fuhai in his line of sight was a crater that was thousands of feet deep and hundreds of miles wide. Gustav landed before a figure who had a bloodied slab of meat splattered across his body. He knelt in place with a visible look of horror. I used a lesser amount of strength this time to reduce destruction so you would be spared, Gustav said to Emperor Dios, who was stained with blood from the pieces of General Borel's body parts. That was not his full strength. Even Quasp would not be able to use the world splitter to cause this much destruction. Emperor Dios' will to battle was shattered completely at this point. Monster. This word rang in his mind continuously as he recalled that Gustav was just a 21-year-old. Why would you spare my life? Emperor Dios asked. Don't give me that look like I am showing mercy. I am not, Gustav said while walking towards him. It is not my place to end you. I will let Daria and the people you had under your tyrannical reign decide what to do to you, Gustav added while grabbing Emperor Dios by the hair. Fwyish, they both vanished from the vicinity in the next instant. It was finally over. The battle that shook the planet. The battle that kept the people of Abrukes awake for the entirety of the night, and as it came to an end so did the 11 years of Emperor Dios' tyrannical reign. The day would later be remembered all across the planet for centuries to come. Chapter 1357 She is a Companions. The day would be remembered all across the planet for centuries to come. As promised, Gustav handed Dios over to Daria, leaving his fate in the hands of the new Empress. Gustav couldn't stick around much longer, so he left when the morning came. It was almost by his original agreement with Dios. He and Matilda had spoken briefly before he left. Thank you, really? This is something I've wanted to take care of for over 10 years. You changed the fate of planet Abrukes in just 3 days of your arrival here. She stared at Gustav with appreciation in her eyes. I made a promise. I never turn back on my words, Gustav answered. Facial hair had already started to grow on his face. It was his original look after staying for over 8 months without getting a shave. He hadn't bothered to get one since he was a shapeshifter. He could always make his face appear without facial hair at any time. You're the best. Thanks for having my back, Matilda said while lightly fist-bumping Gustav on his left chest area. It had been a very long night for her. The second general had taken her by complete surprise and she had lost her hand at the moment of their encounter. Fortunately, Gustav had been watching the whole time, and after dealing with the strongest general, Quasp, he immediately headed to Matilda's side to help her. He had appeared when Matilda was close to getting pierced in the chest, and they dealt with the second general together. Matilda had killed the 5th general earlier, and Gustav dealt with 3 other generals alongside Dios. As for the fourth general, he surrendered himself instead of engaging in a fruitless battle. The tide had been completely turned and the army within the empire all succumbed to Daria's reign. Information spread like wildfire about the former princess taking back control and becoming the empress. The people rejoiced. Daria wants to thank you personally, Matilda said to Gustav. I have to leave. I was meant to rendezvous with Endrik 5 days ago. Gustav shook his head. You can't hold on for one more day? The people of Abrukes would want to thank their savior. Daria approached from up ahead with guards. It would seem she had heard Gustav's response. Nah. I didn't do this for the glory. I would rather they don't know my name. Also, impressed for time. I have a lot of important matters to attend to, Gustav said with a deep tone. You are really just as Matilda described. It is an honor that I ever got to meet you, Gustav Crimson. I wish we had more time to get to know each other, but I understand your plight. Daria spoke sweetly while extending her hand for a handshake. Daria was 8 feet tall, so Gustav had to raise his head a little to match her eyes. I trust you will do better than he did. Gustav returned the handshake while speaking. I will do everything in my power to restore my planet. Daria swore with a determined gaze. Gustav nodded in satisfaction before turning to Matilda. I'm leaving. Endrik should have some information for me on that matter, Gustav said to her. Matilda turned fidgety as she heard that. Don't worry, you can still stay here and help out till we actually come up with a way to save her. You don't need to come with me, Gustav added. I'm worried, what if we never? Before Matilda could complete her sentence, Gustav stopped her by placing his hand on her shoulder. We will save her and Falco. No matter how long it takes, we will, he said with a tone of reassurance. Matilda relaxed a bit after hearing this, but still couldn't hide her teary eyes. I have to leave now, Gustav reminded me. Her reddish feminine figure about 5 feet tall phased out of Gustav. Finally I can get a breather. Enough of this sentimental discussion, let's go. The teenage girl with long red hair spoke with a tinge of annoyance and rudeness. Eh? Daria and Matilda both voiced out simultaneously as they noticed the short redhead. Who is she? Matilda questioned while moving around the teenage girl. Daria also lowered her body a bit to touch the face of the teenage girl. They ignored her rudeness and instantly found her adorable. Her big round eyes and smooth skin made her look like a life-size doll. She's a companion, Gustav answered while rolling his eyes. So cute, Daria muttered. Companion? I literally live in you, dumbass, the teenage-looking girl yelled. Gustav, just how long have you kept this companion from us? Matilda said while playing with the yellowish ribbon attached to the teenage girl's head, who just stood there with her arms wrapped around her flat chest. Not long, Gustav answered before turning away. Humph. The teenage-looking girl nearly nodded at him. Anyways, gotta go now, Gustav answered while walking away. May your journey through the galaxies be safe, Daria voiced from behind. See you soon, Gus, Matilda yelled from behind while waving. Gustav paused after reaching a distance and turned his neck around. You coming? You'd better let me roam free next time. The system pouted before following after him. She walked very briskly, surpassing him in the distance after just a few seconds. She really became more troublesome, Gustav voiced internally. I can hear you, she yelled from up ahead. Get out, Gustav stated before stepping forward. Daria watched them leave with a feeling of great appreciation in her heart. She would never forget that night. The night she got freed. I have to live up to his expectations. Earth bang. A loud crash rang out within an office as a man stood before a table that had been split apart, with his fist lowered. He was clad in a very expensive-looking green suit and had glasses on. It has been over 8 months, and the MBO keeps giving me the same excuse, the man who had 2 large bodyguards behind him stated with a tone of dissatisfaction. I must ask you to calm yourself, sir. Many MBO officers are currently on this case, and even Grand Commander Cheyenne has been investigating this situation as well, the one on the other end of the broken office table replied. MBO officers trooped into the place upon hearing the disturbance, but the man on the other end of the table, who was a general, raised his hand to dismiss them. They nodded and turned to leave the office immediately after seeing the gesture. If the MBO doesn't get my son back, Tristan Empire will pull back its funding, the middle-aged man with smooth skin and short black hair stated. Sir, we're doing everything we can right now, believe me. Just give us some time, the general said with a pleading tone. 8 months is a lot of time. I want to see my son. I want to hold him. I want to hug him. Maybe if it was your kid you would understand. The man yelled once more before turning around. Mr. Tristan, the general voiced while standing to his feet, causing the middle-aged man to pause. If the MBO can't get my son back, they'll do it myself, Mr. Tristan concluded before walking out. The bodyguards swiftly followed behind him, while the general's mouth hung open after realizing that he had gone. General Dickstrat slumped back to his seat with a worried expression on his face. The situation was quite a helpless one. Mr. Tristan got to the parking lot outside the MBO tower, and more guards appeared, following him from the sides as they headed in the direction of a row of exotic-looking hovercars. The door of the one at the forefront was opened up for him, and he proceeded to move in. Good day, sir. The moment he stepped into his car, his eardrums were accosted by the voice of an unknown individual within. Who the hell are you? Mr. Tristan's voice was laced with wariness as he stared at the dark-skinned young man sitting on the other end. Don't be alarmed. Before you alert your bodyguards or anything, you should know that I am a friend of your son. The dark-skinned young man with a very bushy afro hair voiced calmly. I think I recognize you. Weren't you one of those kids that took part in ISOP? Mr. Tristan squinted his eyes as he reminisced. Yes, I am. I was also a part of Falco's set in MBO camp and graduated alongside him as well. We have all been friends for over 3 years. The dark-skinned young man responded. Remind me, what your name was again? Mr. Tristan questioned. I am Elobos Emmanuel, but everyone calls me E, including your son. E, said while extending his arm for a handshake. My son might have mentioned you, Mr. Tristan responded while receiving the handshake. Chapter 1358 Fishing for Answers. But why would you ambush me like this? What are you doing in my car? Mr. Tristan still had a hint of hostility in his tone as he questioned. I have been trying to contact you for some time to no avail. You're a very difficult person to contact, so I took my chance when the opportunity arose. Answered. Trying to contact me? Why? Mr. Tristan asked. I wanted to talk about Falco. The moment E gave this answer, Mr. Tristan's eyes lit up. Did you find my son? What is? No. At least not yet. E cut Mr. Tristan off before he could conclude, causing the poor man's face to darken a bit. But all of his friends, myself included, are working to get him back. E said with a tone of reassurance. If the MBO can't do it, what makes you kids think you can? Tristan questioned while rubbing his temples. Because we were there when it all went down. We were at the forefront of it all. No one witnessed what we did. No one knows everything we know. If anyone can bring back your son, it is us. E stated with an expression of certainty. You sound so sure. Mr. Tristan was taken aback by his tone of confidence. That's also because we have someone on our side, someone who the entire universe longs to acquire. Who is? Sir Tristan, the major reason you and I need to talk is based on the origin of your son. If we wish to get Falco back, I need to know everything. Mr. Tristan paused with a slightly confounded look on his face before replying. Okay. What exactly do you mean by origin? Is Falco truly your son? E inquired with a tone of suspiciousness. What sort of idiotic question is this? Look at my face and tell me you don't see the semblance between me and my son. Of course, he is my son and I do not doubt that. Mr. Tristan yelled loudly. Calm. A loud knock on the side of the tilted window caused things to quieten a bit. "What is it?" Mr. Tristan asked with hostility in his voice. "Sir, are we not leaving?" a bodyguard asked from outside. "Not." Mr. Tristan was about to respond when he butted in. "I think it's better we take this discussion to a more secluded location. You're gonna want to hear what I have to say about Falco," he said with a cryptic tone. Let's go." Mr. Tristan gestured at the bodyguard. In deep space, a spacecraft navigated through an area of brownish space dust. Fly-high, the sphere-shaped spacecraft swerved as a bunch of gray asteroids fritzed past. The spacecraft was moving at such incredible speed, and it took a lot of navigation to get past the asteroids without taking on any damage. The blazing bluish light shooting out of the side of the spacecraft was the only source of illumination in that part of space. After a couple more hours of drifting across space, a bunch of gloomy, icy-colored stars could be spotted in the distance. Within the spacecraft, Gustav sat before the control panel with Circe and the system in physical form strapped to the seats behind. When Gustav noticed the icy-colored stars which looked like planets of their own in the distance, he unstrapped himself. "We're closing in on the Gizmiktoran galaxy," he announced. "That took us nearly 2 weeks of traveling." "How slow?" The system sounded irritated. "If you had a faster means of travel, why didn't you provide it?" Gustav made a load-skiing sound with his tongue after speaking. "Are we there yet, Daddy?" Circe questioned. "No, we still have a long way to go, but it shouldn't take us more than a day," Gustav answered. "Circe understands." Circe nodded. "This is your chance to go back to planet Vespa. If you want it, I could send you back there right now," Gustav added quietly. "No. I want to stay with you." Circe shook her head. "Are you sure? You most definitely have free will to go with whatever you wish," Gustav asked her again. "Yes, I am sure," she responded with a tone of certainty. "All right then," Gustav said before turning around to head back to his initial sitting area. He suddenly paused as he thought of something. "You're still too weak as you are," he said while turning around and walking back towards Circe. "Here is a little reward for being a good girl," Gustav said while placing his hand on her head. "Bloodline upgrade has been activated." Circe had a look of cluelessness on her face till she felt power flowing into her. Earth and Mr. Tristan could be spotted sitting in a luxurious living room. It was incredibly large and furnished with expensive decor. There was a large statue in the middle of the living room of a man in a suit, holding onto a walking cane. The statue was nearly 30 feet tall, with the ceiling of the living room being even higher in height. It was carved out of high-grade gems and had pristine transparent water trickling from the tip of the walking cane into an exalted mini pool of sorts. The stairways were positioned on the far ends of the living room with an elevator area on the east. If E wasn't in a serious conversation with Mr. Tristan at the moment, he would have been admiring the incredible view in front of him. If Falco was here right now, I would have called him a lucky rich bastard for growing up in a place like this. Omicron for some reason, none of them had ever been to Falco's house, so this was the first time East was seeing his place, and he was also the first amongst the group to visit. "Are you telling me that before any of that happened, Falco was having nightmares of a strange person claiming to be his real father?" Mr. Tristan questioned with a troubled expression. Yes, this person had been plaguing his nightmares for some time. Claimed to be his true father, the ruler of some unknown dimension. Falco was also said to be heir to the throne since he got some type of crown. We know it wasn't Falco just being paranoid and imagining it, because Gustav Crimson personally witnessed the physical manifestation of the crown. Answered. "Gustav Crimson? The universal fugitive?" Mr. Tristan said with a look of skepticism. "I know how it sounds, but the world seems to have forgotten that he saved the Earth more than once. Also, he fought to protect your son so many times. He is the reason the rest of us managed to make it back to Earth safely. So, before you try to discredit him with the lies the Alliance is spewing about him, remember his deeds." Responded begrudgingly. I know he is someone my son values and respects because just as my son has mentioned your name before, he has also mentioned that of the youngster, Gustav Crimson, but did he truly destroy planet Ozius? Mr. Tristan questioned, his eyes denoting suspicion. No. It is all a setup because they realized what Gustav is capable of and everyone now wants him for themselves. Answered before explaining. Planet Ozius was attacked by underlings of this person who is also responsible for taking Falco and our other friend. This was another way we confirmed that Falco wasn't just having nightmares, he was having an encounter with whoever that being was, and that being destroyed planet Ozius because he wanted to take Falco and kill Gustav. Mr. Tristan had a more troubled look on his face as he clasped his palms together and lowered his head. What exactly are we dealing with here? Mr. Tristan questioned in a low voice. We haven't completely figured it out yet, but it isn't an easy opponent. I need you to tell me everything about Falco's origin. Is there anything you're hiding? It could help us in getting him back. Requested thoughtfully. I don't know what to tell you. That boy is my son and I never doubted it for the last 20 years since his birth. My wife, she is incapable of. I am not accusing your wife of anything. Chimed in before it could breed a misunderstanding. I am asking if you remember any weird occurrence years ago. Maybe before his birth or after his birth. Could be anything, just try to remember. Recalling Gustav being an otherworldly being, despite his birth parents' identity as mixed bloods made him have an open mind. Anything was possible at this point, regardless of how things were looking. I think I recall an odd occurrence when my wife was still pregnant with him. I never really thought much of it till you mentioned this, Mr. Tristan said with a reminiscent look. Chapter 1359. What a pretty space bird. I think I recall an odd occurrence when my wife was still pregnant with him. I never really thought much of it till you mentioned this, Mr. Tristan said with a reminiscent look. What is it? Asked with a tone of curiosity. In deep space, Gustav stood before a sleeping Circe with a conflicted expression. You know you could just send her back if you're not interested in babysitting anyone. The system voice from the side. I would, but she made her choice. Although I feel a little distressed bringing a teenage girl along with us, I am confident enough in protecting her at least, Gustav answered while folding his hands. Teenage girl? She is 18. The system scoffed. Still a teenage girl, Gustav stated. Because she calls you daddy. Get your head out of your smelly arse, you're not much older. The system spat. You really gotta work on your attitude. I would have mistaken you for a teenage girl on her period had you not been a computerized being with sentience, Gustav said before turning around. What? A teenage girl on her period? How dare you? Take that back, you damned virgin! Take it back! The system began throwing tantrums, but Gustav ignored her completely while strapping in. We're closing in on Tracheowar Star. We should get there in about 4 hours, Gusta announced while recalling a few scenarios. 9 months ago. They're coming, Endrik said to Gustav within the establishment where they were kept. I know. I'm glad I got to speak to Angie's parents yesterday even though they weren't very welcoming of me. Gustav had spoken to Angie's parents a day prior. He didn't want to leave Earth without assuring the poor people that he would get their daughter back no matter the cost. Angie's parents had been heartbroken from the moment the Earth ISOP participants returned without their daughter. The MBO officials who addressed her claimed Angie was lost in the destruction, claiming she was forever gone. Gustav had visited them without anyone's knowledge that he even left the current facility. Recalling how they reminded him of how he promised to keep their daughter safe, Gustav couldn't help but feel like a great failure. He made another promise to recover their daughter after assuring them that she wasn't dead. Endrik, you take the other spacecraft, and make sure you visit the locations we talked about to gather as much info as you can. They probably won't send many troops after you since we're splitting up. He'll drag them away from you as much as I can so you won't be hindered, Gustav said to Endrik. Are you going to let them capture you? Eric inquired. For our plan to go smoothly, especially with the task I've given yes, but I will let them pursue me for some time first, and let it be that they captured me due to yes help. I will only stay in their custody for a bit, and rendezvous with you on the Tracheowar star. Gustav answered calmly. To think you didn't even get to enjoy your stay on Earth for more than a few days after our return. Endrik let out a little sigh. It is fine. We have 3 priorities currently. Getting Angie and Falco back, retrieving the sacred items, and recovering the machine I built to investigate the warp demodulator. Well, focus on taking care of the first one when we rendezvous on the Tracheowar star. I'm counting on you to recover the warp demodulator reading machine for me. Gustav pointed out with enough detail. Lightsenville, understood, be careful please. Endrik responded while stretching his fist forward. Gustav nodded while bumping his fist lightly with a smile. You too, kiddo. Immediately after their brief discussion ended, loud knocks were heard at the entry points of the medical room they had inhabited. Bam! 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 Gustav crimson. We are here to take you in. Resisting capturing will result in the use of lethal force. Loud voices were heard from the entry point as armed MBO officers knocked with enough force to blast the entrance down, repeatedly. Endrik had barricaded the surroundings with telekinetic walls so the assailants' knocks were unable to get in. Zing zing, a blue light engulfed Gustav and Endrik's figure, and they vanished in the next instant. Bang! The doors and west side of the walls came crashing down in the next instant as MBO officers trooped in large numbers. Where are they? Damn it! Did they already know what we were up to? The disappointed voices of the officers rang out as they looked around while some of them dashed out of the premises in a bid to chase after Gustav and Endrik. Present. It's all good since their chase helped me clear a lot of system quests and gain benefits. Gustav muttered as he recalled evolving a few more skills in the 9 months. One of the best boons would be improving his bloodline rank despite burying 99% of his essence in planet Vespa soil. His original bloodline, genetic manipulation, was now able to do some things that he never thought were possible. I can't genetically assimilate an entire person's body, but if I somehow become capable of mixing that with shape-shifting, I will be able to use anyone's ability without taking it from them. Gustav was thinking about how he took General Quasp's arm's form from a biological, cellular, and genetic aspect and used his ability to manipulate the world-splitting axe. A phenomenon that was impossible with ordinary shape-shifting. He gushed at the potential of this ability, but currently, it had very huge limitations. He should have a little information for me after talking to Falco's father. Once Endrik and I manage to make some progress out here, we will return to Earth. Gustav decided. It's high time ID. Before Gustav could complete his sentence, he sensed something and turned left. He instantly tapped a control button on the panel. Defense mode engaged. A loud computerized voice suddenly rang out as the silvery spacecraft suddenly changed into a black color on the exterior while blazing through space. Bang! A loud crash rang out in the next moment, causing the spacecraft to quake intensely. What is going on? Upon the crash, Cersei suddenly jolted awake. Nothing much, just a bunch of fools who just made a very terrible mistake, Gustav voiced while getting up from his seat. Twi-hi, a large 3-story building-sized spacecraft suddenly appeared in their rear view, causing Cersei's eyes to widen in confusion. Who are they? She questioned cutely. Static. Static. Before Gustav could reply, a little static sound rang out within their spacecraft, and what came next was a masculine voice. Kia! 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 What a pretty bird! A loud maniacal laughter rattled the speakers within the spacecraft. This space bird now belongs to us. You can either surrender peacefully or we take it by force. The voice resounded again. Gustav tapped on a button as bloodline energy began to gather around him. How about you surrender yours to me instead? Gustav's voice transmission was sent to the spacecraft, shadowing them. Kia, 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 Kia. There must be a comedian on board that pretty bird. Prepare to crack your jokes in the afterlife, comedian. Immediately after the weird masculine voice finished transmitting, the inverted cross-shaped spacecraft closed in on them while massive weapon cannons phased out of it. Cersei sat with childlike awe in her eyes. She had nothing to fear when Gustav was with her. Gustav shook his head in pity before turning around. He reappeared above his sphere-shaped spacecraft the moment two massive green beams were shot forward. Gustav's palm emitted a bright milky glow as he thrust it forward with intensity. "Take this." The mighty glow made contact with the first massive green beam. It was like an ant had just made contact with an elephant because of the disparity in their sizes, but in the next moment, the beam began to twirl. The beam on the left vanished before it could even make contact with the spacecraft, while the one on the right continuously ripped forward. "Who the hell is that person?" Within the control room of the other spacecraft, an unknown group watched with their jaws dropping to the floor. Gustav leaped forward at this point, tearing through the second incoming green beam with his bare body. Before the people within the other spacecraft could react, loud alarms began blaring. "Weapon Systems 1 has gone offline. Weapon System 2 has gone offline. Weapon System 3 has gone offline." It was almost like everything was happening at the same time as the space bandits noticed from one of the footage that Gustav was ripping the weapons out of the spacecraft like they were nothing and flinging them away. "Deploy Star Charge now!" the one in command yelled. "But boss, we will lose some compartments," one of the subordinates voiced cautiously. "Do it now!" Their boss couldn't spare the decision a second thought as he witnessed what the monster before them was doing to their spacecraft. "Star Charge is activating." 3, 2, 1. A bright, fluorescent-colored light suddenly engulfed their side of space. Chapter 1360. Keep your apology. A bright fluorescent-colored light suddenly engulfed their side of space. Along with the burst of light, came a surge of energy that rippled across space. Bam! Gustav's spacecraft up ahead got hit by the Star Charge and tumbled forward uncontrollably, before crashing into a moon up by the side. Phew! He should have gotten obliterated with that attack. The leader of the group of space bandits, who had a lamb-like physique and a camel-shaped face, let out a sigh of relief. The others around him seemed to be different species of aliens dressed rather shabbily. They were quite the motley crew. "Boss, I knew it was a bad idea to go after that space bird," one of them spoke from his side. "Shut up, Paxi. Everything is a bad idea to you," the camel-face-shaped leader of the space bandits said before stepping forward to assess the damage done to their ship. "That bastard was hella strong." The camel-face-shaped was distraught about how he would have to spend money to fix the damages caused to their ship. Instead of a gain, they had encountered a loss. "Good thing he is dead now." This realization gave him a bit of satisfaction. "Who says I am?" A deep masculine voice suddenly cooed out from behind. Everyone instantly froze the moment they heard him, while the leader slowly turned around. The moment he spotted the humanoid figure standing at the entry point of the control room, chills ran across his body. "How are you still?" Before he could complete his sentence, the 63 human figure with dirty blonde hair appeared in front of him. To the leader of the space bandits, it felt like he teleported. Queek! The leader let out a belch as he got grabbed by the throat and lifted. The others around wanted to arm themselves with weaponry, but they couldn't even move. Their legs and arms felt frozen in place due to fear. The pressure that the man before them emitted caused sweat to run down their bodies like they were dipped in a pool. One of the space bandits wiped his forehead and temples. Another could have sworn he felt wetness between his legs. Gustav had them all in an invisible chokehold. Right before their eyes, he had taken a blast of their Star Charge and came out unscathed. They all wondered if weaker technological weapons would just be like needles trying to prick his skin. "Please prepare me, Great One," the leader managed to utter as Gustav's grip tightened on his throat. "Oh? You suddenly turned into an ass-kisser. What happened to you wanting to take my pretty space bird?" Gustav questioned with pedally. "Gre, at one eye Paul. Log IC for the blunder," the leader replied in a shrill voice. "Keep your apology. I will be taking your spacecraft." Gustav said before flinging the leader away. The leader watched as Gustav took command of the spacecraft and turned it around. Gustav wasn't even bothered about the crew behind whom he left untouched. He knew very well that with the strength he displayed, they had zero will to attack him. The bandits' spacecraft arrived on the small moon Gustav's spacecraft crashed into, and they descended. Circe and the system in physical manifestation were already standing outside. Circe had a spacesuit on while the system stood on the moon undisturbed by the lack of oxygen in space. A trail of frost had begun to spread from Circe's position to the surroundings, as she conjured gigantic spikes in a bid to attack the descending spacecraft. The system held her hand before she could go through with it and said, "It's him." Within the helmet of the spacesuit, Circe's face lit up and the frost began to retract. The spacecraft was almost 4 times the size of theirs, so its descent had cast a little shadow on the moon due to the illumination from the giant, glowing, planet-sized stars in the distance. People began to fall from the spacecraft and landed in different positions all across the moon. They were the crew members of the spacecraft along with their leader, but they weren't falling out. Gustav was throwing them out himself. "Please don't leave us here. We'll run out of air and die," the leader of the space bandits pleaded. Since there was no sound in space, it would have been impossible to hear the leader, but they all had their spacesuits on, so communication was still possible. "That is your problem, not mine," Gustav answered through the communication panel within the spacecraft before disconnecting. The leader and the other crew members kept pleading, but Gustav ignored them. Circe was beamed up alongside the sphere-shaped spacecraft, while the system just appeared within since Gustav was already inside. So the spacecraft zoomed off in the next instant, leaving the former crew in place. "Daddy, you're safe." Circe jumped into Gustav's embrace the moment they got into the control room. "Yeah." Gustav patted her back twice before disengaging. "You should probably stop calling Daddy and start calling me Gustav," he added. "Okay, Daddy." Circe smiled cutely. What is the matter, Daddy?" "Never mind." Gustav nearly facepalmed as he turned away to face the panels and holographic images of different areas within and outside the spacecraft. While they resumed traveling after the little mishap, the system analyzed the damages to their original spacecraft and reported back to Gustav on the areas that needed repairs. "They'll do that after meeting up with Hendrik," Gustav said to her as they continued to cruise across space. About 3 hours later, the spacecraft began to close in on a massive green rock in the distance that seemed to be emitting a large volume of gases while traveling across space. The rock was as large as a quarter of Earth but moving much faster. Unlike other orbital bodies, it didn't have a movement pattern, nor was it circulating any larger orbital body. One couldn't even see the surface due to the volume of gases it emitted. Fortunately, despite its extremely quick movement across space, their spacecraft was faster. Gustav closed in on the massively green space rock and made sure to maintain a steady speed the moment they were only a few paces from its center of gravity. "We have arrived at the Trachewar star," Gustav muttered while leaving the spacecraft on autopilot. Circe still had a look of cluelessness on her face while staring at the holographic projection that displayed footage of the green rock below. "Is that where we are going?" she inquired. "That is where I am going, alone," Gustav answered. "Circe wants to come with you," Circe voiced while unstrapping. "No," Gustav answered bluntly while grabbing his red long jacket from the side and draping it around his shoulders. "The gases oozing from the Trachewar star are extremely dangerous. Should anyone get even 10,000 feet close, they will get evaporated and turn into gases themselves," Gustav said while covering his entire figure with a layer of milk-colored energy. "Even the spacecraft can't descend beyond this level, or it would corrode as well," he added. Circe had a look of disbelief on her face as she responded. "But father, you said your brother is down there." "Yes. Hendrik is powerful enough to survive there with ease. You, on the other hand, would turn into vapor before you managed to reach the surface, so I am going down there alone," Gustav answered while stepping forward. Circe had a slightly frightened look after hearing that, and stared at the green gases polluting space that was emitting from the rock below them. "Stay here. I will be back as soon as I can," Gustav arrived at the hatch area. At least Kira is here with me, Cersei voiced while hugging the system, which was sitting in place with a disinterested expression. Lightsfeld, did she name the system? That's weird. Gustav raised his left eyebrow for a moment before replying. She will vanish soon. She can't stay too far from me, but don't worry, the spacecraft will keep following the current speed of the Trachea star. It'll be back, Gustav added before vanishing. A barely noticeable dot could be spotted descending towards the massive rock blazing across space. It soon disappeared into the green mist. Big Brother has arrived. Within the dense green mist, Endrik suddenly stood to his feet. The small fire blazing on the ground before him slightly illuminated a pile of beastly corpses behind him as he stepped forward. Fuera intense wind suddenly surged forth, clearing the mist across a radius of 10,000 feet. At the far end, Endrik could spot a humanoid figure charging at him with great speed. He was first alarmed by the energy this figure emitted, which could undoubtedly destroy the entire star on which he stood. A smile appeared on his face as the figure arrived before him in the next moment. Big Brother, Endrik muttered. Hey kiddo, Gustav replied while stretching his fist out. Chapter 1361. Catching up on the Trachea star. Endrik reached out and exchanged a fist bump with Gustav. Maybe I should be the one calling you Big Brother, Gustav added after noticing the facial hair on Endrik's face. They both started chuckling almost immediately afterwards as Gustav wrapped his arm around the back of Endrik's neck before pulling him in. Moments later they sat before the fire and began catching up. Did you really slaughter half the population of the beasts on the Trachea star? Gustav said with a look of astonishment, as his senses spread across the entire star. They wouldn't stop coming, so I had to use them as a wall, Endrik answered bashfully. From what Gustav could sense, there was a circular wall barricade around them at the moment. The barricade was made from the corpses of the beast Endrik had slaughtered. Gustav had to jump over a side of corpses that was hundreds of feet tall before he could arrive within the barricade to meet up with Endrik. The space within covered more than a 20,000 feet radius, which went on to show just how many of these creatures he had slaughtered since he had arrived there. On the bright side, the barricade did its job of deterring any beast from approaching. Seeing the pile of corpses was enough to tell them that this was a restricted area. I'm sure you must have lost count of how many came at you. Gustav shook his head in pity for the poor creatures. However, he was inwardly proud of his little brother's progress. At least I was able to gather the 8 tartan hearts needed, Endrik answered before pointing his finger in a particular direction. Zing 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 zing. 8 massive building-sized organs appeared in a lined-up format behind Gustav. Good job. Gustav nodded in approval. You keep praising my deeds and improvement, but I pale in comparison to yours. I sensed your energy earlier. It felt like being in the presence of an alpha, Endrik said with a tone of adoration. I may have improved a lot in strength, but you still did way more than me in these last 9 months, Gustav replied. Not at all. You got chased down by the MBO. Got caught, escaped, got chased again, and this time from planets under the Alliance. Fought them off, kept fleeing, arrived at planet Vespa and retrieved the ancient hourglass, all while improving your strength and abilities. You did a lot, Big Brother, Endrik listed out. You went to the #RK point to get the 3rd sacred item, then came all the way here to acquire 8 tartan hearts required to get information on the other dimension Angie and Falco got lost in, and not to mention the fact that you traveled past 17 galaxies to retrieve the machine I created to read the flow of the warp demolator. Gustav also listed out the things Endrik had been up to since they separated. About the machine for the warp demolator. Endrik stopped Gustav before he could continue. What about it? Gustav inquired. Zing, a chunk of an oddly shaped item appeared in between them. This is what I recovered, Endrik said while pointing at the head-sized device. Where is the rest of it? Gustav questioned. Endrik shook his head in response. This was all I saw. I was confused as well. Gustav reached out to grab the device, which was obviously half of its original size, and tapped on the buttons attached to the sides multiple times. Either something tampered with this or the warp demolator appeared there. Gustav muttered with a suspicious look. Big brother, I don't understand what this warp demolator thing is supposed to be. Hendrik had a look of confusion on his face. It's a long story. They'll just insert the information into your mind, Gustav voiced while getting to his feet. Mental manipulation has been activated. Gustav placed his index finger on Hendrik's forehead and information began to flow into his mind. After a couple of seconds, Gustav retracted his finger and took a seat back on the ground. So, besides the current predicament of the one who shall not be named and Falco, there is still a situation that is currently brewing which could potentially cause havoc in the universe and nobody is aware? Hendrik questioned with a dumbstruck expression. Scientist Zill is aware and maybe a few others, but the ones in leadership don't really care. They didn't take it seriously, Gustav replied. This makes me question everything. According to what you have discovered so far, if planet Humbad was never destroyed, why did the Slarkovs lie? Where did the meteors come from? The energies formed that caused the evolution of Earth did not come from planet Humbad's destruction, so where did they come from? Hendrik couldn't stop himself from yapping away. That's what I am trying to figure out. That's why I am looking for planet Humbad, since it got moved from its original location in space. There is a place called Dimension 6 on it that I need to locate, and I only have a little over a year left to find it. I still don't know what the warp demolator is and why it has the capacity to swallow up entire orbital bodies and cough them out in an entirely different location. It is super unpredictable and stealthy since the Alliance isn't aware of it. Gustav paused as he raised the device in his grasp. This machine would have helped me understand it a little better and predict its appearance to an extent, but... Gustav shook his head as he stared at the part of the device that had a missing piece. Can you rebuild it? Hendrik inquired. It took me months to create it, and the resources needed are on Earth. I don't have months to spare. Gustav shook his head while recalling all of the things they needed to do. He was also worried that things would end up the same way should he dedicate another couple of months to building it. The chip is gone. It would have given me the information I needed, Gustav voiced before letting go of the device. Who knows why the Slarkovs kept this a secret from the start? If only there was a way to question the old Slarkovs on this. They would have known something about it, but it's been millennia. They're all long gone. Hendrik shook his head. Silence ensued for a few seconds as Gustav tapped the incomplete device twice. Someone did this. He broke the silence. How do you know? And what would their objective be? Hendrik inquired. I created this machine to be anti-warp demolator resistant. Even if it was swallowed up, which it wasn't, the chip was built to escape. Someone did this, Gustav stated. How do we find them? Hendrik asked. How long have you had this in your possession? Gustav inquired while raising the incomplete device. It's been over 3 months, Hendrik answered. SJ. Gustav called out. Zing, a circular transparent object appeared before them. The surface of the object looked incredibly smooth like glass, but one could see a large fluorescent glow within. This fluorescent glow was as large as an adult fist and had a pair of hollow eyes within. Yes, master? Wordings appeared in midair, right above it. Did you keep tabs on where I sent this? Gustav questioned while holding up the incomplete device. Yes, I did, the jewel responded. Good. I need a playback from over 3 months ago. Can you show me? Gustav requested. Playback from over 3 months ago coming up. Gustav and Hendrik watched with keen eyes as the body of the sacred jewel turned completely white as it began playing footage from a particular location in space. Earth, within a large but dimly lit room, a group of 4 in silver-decorated MBO uniforms sat in a circle. 3 were present in holographic format, so their faces were darkened to the point where they couldn't be properly seen, but their uniforms were very visible. The one who seemed to be present physically seemed quite elderly, and had a diamond-like shard embedded into his forehead. This is no joke. Countermeasures need to be put in place immediately, Grand Commander Cheyenne declared urgently. Dash. Grand Commander Cheyenne, I understand your claims, but could it be that you have gotten rusty? Dash. How does a random assailant blast an outfranked mixed blood away easily? Two of the other 4 Grand Generals questioned. Rusty? Might I remind you too of who you're calling Rusty? Grand Commander Cheyenne voiced in a tone that caused the surroundings to tremble. Dash. Grand Commander Kim. Grand Commander Soraya. Let us not disrespect one another. Grand Commander Cheyenne had been at the forefront for some time, handling matters that should have been distributed properly amongst the 4 of us. The other Grand Commander cautioned the rest. Thank you, Grand Commander Light. That being said, when this person appeared, I felt like I was in the presence of someone almost as powerful as Jack and Mac. Grand Commander Cheyenne revealed. To 1 and 2 privilege is now available for purchase. Chapter 1362 The Void Stepper. Thank you, Grand Commander Light. That being said, when this person appeared, I felt like I was in the presence of someone almost as powerful as Jack and Mac. Grand Commander Cheyenne revealed. What? The 3 other Grand Commanders simultaneously voiced out in disbelief. Grand Commander Cheyenne, are you certain of this? Grand Commander Light questioned. He looked completely baffled. I would not have called for this meeting if I wasn't. This could become a great threat if countermeasures are not put in place. Grand Commander Cheyenne answered. You said almost as powerful as Jack and Mac, but almost still means their strength is not up to par. We shouldn't be too worried since Jack and Mac would be able to take care of them if needed. Grand Commander Soraya's feminine voice resonated unperturbed. Anyone on that level of power, which is beyond the strength of all 4 of us, is not to be underestimated. It seemed like they came for the Death Angel, and I can guarantee you, they would have gotten the creature if they didn't suddenly vanish. Its impromptu appearance is one that was most certainly unexpected. Considering how easily they broke into the underwater lab, under the nose of over 100 MBO officers, and easily overpowered me, there is no stopping them from doing that again despite the change in location of where the creature is held. Grand Commander Cheyenne voiced lengthily. This assailant you speak of. Any idea on who they are? Grand Commander Kim inquired. He sounded troubled. I don't know. But I don't believe that being of Earth. They didn't emit bloodline energy. There seemed to be a sort of chaotic energy mixed within what I sensed, some sort of instability. Grand Commander Cheyenne added to this analysis. Dash. What does that even mean? Grand Commander Soraya questioned. I don't know, there is a lot that I don't understand. Grand Commander Cheyenne rested his elbows on the floating transparent table in their midst and merged his fingers with a disturbed look. I can't tell them about the research progress on the other dimension just yet. They are prone to making decisions that I may not be suited to. It would be very unwise for us to finally succeed in cracking that dimension open, only to send MBO officers to their deaths. Grand Commander Cheyenne recalled everything Dr. Markle told him. He figured that with the pride of the MBO, they wouldn't be willing to accept such claims about the pyramid of power within the other dimension, and how they would not survive up to a minute in there. With the Death Angels considered to not be the highest on the hierarchy yet being 1,000 times more powerful than him who was supposed to be an alpha, everyone would surely find it ridiculous. Not even Jack was that powerful, and yet he was considered the top 5 strongest beings in the universe based on the New Age rankings of powerful beings under the Alliance that have been active for the last couple of centuries. Grand Commander Cheyenne decided that he would not be informing them of the progress of this research yet till more information was discovered. From what you have mentioned, Grand Commander Cheyenne, this being was after the Amir Death Angel? Grand Commander Light tried to confirm the current information he was passing. That is the best possible deduction for now. The timing, their pattern, and behavior were all pointing toward that. Grand Commander Cheyenne responded. If there is a possibility that it may appear the second time, we should expect it to come for the Death Angel again. I suggest we call Jack back to Earth and have him guard the current research center where the creature is being kept. Grand Commander Light suggested logically. I agree with Grand Commander Light. If Jack returns, it would be like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Well, have him protect the research center so the scientists can keep making progress, and if that being was to ever appear again, he could capture them. Grand Commander Kim chimed in. What do you think, Grand Commander Soraya? Grand Commander Cheyenne questioned. Why does it matter what I think, when you three already agreed with this course of action? Grand Commander Soraya sounded a little disgruntled. Then it is decided. Jack will be called to return to Earth with utmost urgency. Until his arrival, I will keep watch over the new research center where the Death Angel is kept. Grand Commander Cheyenne stated. Agreed. Do inform us of any progress, Grand Commander Cheyenne. Understood. This meeting is adjourned. Grand Commander Cheyenne announced. The projection of the three other Grand Commanders vanished in the next instant, leaving only Grand Commander Cheyenne sitting in place. He sat in silence within the dimly lit environment for a bit before standing to his feet. Why do I feel uneasy about asking Jack to return to Earth? He muttered with a disturbed look. We are really dealing with something that is beyond us here, but for the sake of our future generations, we need to handle it. Upon saying this, the image of a blonde-haired person appeared in his mind. Sigh. I hope the kid is okay. The Trachea War star. So we are going back to Earth? Endrick questioned with a slightly disturbed look. Doesn't seem like I have much of a choice here. Gustav said while reaching out to grab the sacred jewel which had just finished showing a long playback that lasted for nearly 12 hours. Fortunately, the 12 hours of playback was sped up so it packed up to 2 months of footage within, and now the problem had been revealed to Gustav. It was something he never expected to see. He saw himself appear in the footage and tamper with the device. Same hair, same face, same height, same skin color, a literal copy of himself. At first, Gustav suspected it could be a shapeshifter. While shapeshifters were extremely rare, he knew he couldn't be the only shapeshifter in the universe. However, he realized something. Which shapeshifter will be aware of the exact location in space where he kept the warp demolator reading machine? Which shapeshifter would display his exact facial expressions and demeanor to such perfection? And more importantly, which shapeshifter would be capable of using his atomic manipulation abilities to dismantle the device and take the chip? There is only one person I suspect could be capable of this. Scientist Zill, Gustav said with a tone of certainty. The scientist who helped you with the planetary placement dimensional theory? Endrick asked. Yes, Gustav answered. How? Endrick looked confounded as he further questioned Gustav. Well, I let him stick his needle in me for the betterment of humanity. I guess I shouldn't have done that. Gustav shook his head in disappointment. He really trusted Scientist Zill during the period they worked together, which prompted him to help in creating the Arkham serum using his cells. Gustav didn't expect something like this to happen and secretly hoped his speculations were wrong. Because if they weren't, he would have to deal with Scientist Zill. Endrick could half understand what Gustav was hinting at, so he stopped asking about Scientist Zill, but still, he worried. Then, what do we do about the information we were supposed to exchange for 8 tartan hearts? The location of the Zelios Tower is literally in the opposite direction of Earth, Endrick said, feeling conflicted. Let us head to the Zelios Tower first. It shouldn't take us a lot of time to conclude our business there. We could double back to Earth with my dimensional bracelet. 2 stop spatial points should get us to Earth very quickly, but it will run out of energy when we arrive back there, so we will need to be careful and try as much as possible not to get ourselves into a situation where we need the dimensional bracelet to escape. Gustav explained lengthily. It will take us approximately a month of travel to get to Zelios Tower. Which means in a month and a few days we should be back on Earth. Endrick calculated. Yes. With the dimensional bracelet, our journey back should only take a couple of moments. So long as we conclude our business in the Zelios Tower quickly, we can get back to Earth almost immediately. Gustav answered with a tone of certainty. To Zelios Tower it is then, Endrick voiced while his body levitated above the ground. Gustav nodded and levitated as well. I almost forgot. Endrick landed on his feet and snapped his finger. Zing! A pair of green and gold glowing battle boots appeared in Endrick's grasp. The Void Stepper, he said while handing the boots over to Gustav. The boots emitted such an ancient aura of energy that the entirety of the Trachewar star began quaking. It felt like space was contracting around the boots, causing orbital bodies to draw closer. Chapter 1363 The Zelios Tower. It emitted a great attraction energy that Gustav couldn't quite fathom. Damn, this color is going to make my outfit look bad. Gustav broke the initial silence that plagued the environment after accepting the Void Stepper. There was no doubt that this sacred item was very powerful, but Gustav still didn't know what it could do. Just put it on. You should be powerful enough to use it at your current level of strength, Hendrik said to Gustav. I haven't received any information about it in my mind, unlike how it went with the ancient hourglass. Gustav took off his current black designer shoes and proceeded to wear the Void Stepper. In the moment he took a casual step forward, a blast of energy was channeled from the battle boots. Boom! Cersei watched the Trachewar star suddenly explode through the holographic projection within the spacecraft above. She dashed towards the control room in horror. Father? Her eyes widened after noticing that the Trachewar star was completely gone. It had vanished from space after getting obliterated. Father? Cersei yelled once more in pain, but in the next moment heard a voice ring out behind her. When did you birth a daughter? Cersei turned around to spot a 6-foot-tall young man with curly black hair standing beside Gustav with a look of confusion. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention her. This is Cersei, a kid I freed from planet Vespa. It's a long story, but she decided to come with me, Gustav said to Hendrik. You took her without her consent. The system suddenly appeared in physical form. Only at first, Gustav said with a wry tone. Hendrik already knew who the system was, so he had no questions about her presence here. You kidnapped her? Damn, big brother, I forgot you had it in you. Hendrik shook his head. I did. Gustav did not get the chance to clear up the misunderstanding before Cersei galloped forward and grabbed Hendrik's hand. You must be uncle, she said with a tone of excitement the moment she pieced things together about Hendrik being the little brother Gustav referred to in the past. Uncle? Girl, you're older than me. Hendrik's face dropped as he pulled his arm from her grasp. The spacecraft soon turned noisy as they began arguing. Cersei kept claiming that Hendrik was her uncle while Hendrik refused the title, saying she was older. In actuality, Hendrik was supposed to be around 14 to 15 years of age, but due to the time he spent in another dimension, he was currently 17 years of age. Nevertheless, Cersei was 18 years old, so she truly was older than him. Gustav shook his head in frustration before reaching out to take the Void Stepper boots off. This is currently too difficult to control. I will have to find somewhere to train with it before I destroy planets by mistake, Gustav said while keeping the battle boots in his spatial store. Information about the Void Piercer had drifted into his mind, and now that he knew more of its capabilities, he was even more worried. The Void Stepper could take him anywhere. He could walk on the air with it, step into another galaxy with it in an instant, step into another dimension. All he had to do was step, and there was nowhere he couldn't go. The only problem with it was the energy it gave off. With this sacred item, he could really destroy planets and orbital bodies by accident if he didn't learn how to use it properly. Just one casual step he took earlier destroyed the entire Trachewar star. A star that had different rare beastly alien species on it. A star that had existed for millenniums, just gone in a single step. Not to mention that he could also get himself killed using it. Taking a step forward and arriving in another galaxy was possible with the Void Stepper, but using that type of ability was like breaking through time and space. If it was only over a small distance, it wouldn't have much of an adverse effect, but walking into another galaxy billions of light years away, his body could get blasted to pieces. It was just like driving a car at very high speed and suddenly clamping the brakes for the vehicle to come to a stop. There were bound to be repercussions, which is why seat belts were available for passengers. But in this case, there were no safety measures to keep Gustav safe. His strength wouldn't be enough to do that without suffering dire consequences. His legs would be safe due to the boots, but the rest of his body would bear the full brunt of moving at that type of speed which was thousands, if not millions of times faster than the speed of light. There was only one way Gustav knew it would be possible to use the Void Stepper without negative effects. "How long till I can use the vest?" Gustav questioned. "You need to get close to the third step of beta ranked at least. You can use Cohelia power already, but for the vest you still need to be a bit stronger," the system replied from the side. Gustav raised his left palm and stared at the rhombus-shaped marking in the middle. It wasn't visible to the normal eye, but he could see the multicolored rings within twisting anti-clockwise and repeatedly merging as well as separating. "I didn't even notice that Cohelia has been unsealed," Gustav voiced with a tone of astonishment. "You don't feel its power taking a toll on your body? That means you're truly strong enough to use it now," the system pointed out. "Anyways, I can't use the Void Stepper till I can equip the vest." Gustav lowered his hand before stepping forward. 4 sacred items acquired. 3 more to go, Gustav said while taking a seat before the control panels. "You have a year and 3 months left to complete the 5-year quests," the system reminded. "Yeah, not much time left, especially when the third premonition can occur at any time from now." Gustav's head rang a little due to how much work he had to do. However, when he recalled all of his loved ones, especially the one with pretty silver and pink-colored hair, he decided that it was all worth it. "Now, let's head to the Zelios Tower." 3 months ago, in an unknown galaxy, a massive ring could be spotted circulating like an orbital body in space. The ring had an icy color and almost looked like it was made out of gas, but this wasn't the case. It was composed of physical matter and was half the size of Earth. Just like a planet would, it also had an outer and inner atmosphere. A civilization of alien species existed on the surface of these circulating rings. Within one of the triangular structures on the surface of this ring, a meeting was ongoing. "The Alliance has truly kicked us out of our seat and are taking a long time to respond to our requests." A being clad in flowing silky garments spoke in the midst of the gathering. Every single one of the beings present there had rough, brownish heads with a pair of long antennas protruding from the top of their heads. The antennas had green eyeballs planted at their tips, which was no doubt responsible for their sense of sight. Their brownish faces only had a little mouth in the middle. They had humanoid structures but insect-like body parts. This was to be expected since our great planet was destroyed. We lost many, but fortunately, some of us survived. We shall not soil the names of the many that were lost and bring the culprit, Gustav Crimson, to justice. Handler 3 spoke with a dignified tone. "Yes." The entire place rumbled from the response of the other Ozas in the vicinity. They began chanting vibrantly while Handler 3 kept quiet for a bit. It turned out that the location was an artificial home created by the leaders of planet Ozius a long time ago. Since planet Ozius' destruction caused the death of billions, many of the millions of Oza survivors made their way to this place for refuge. The Ozas that were helped by other species to escape were later brought here, including those rescued by Gustav and the others. The Alliance delays in capturing the fugitive, but some of our people are still out there. We cannot leave everything in the hands of the disappointing Alliance, so we shall take the retrieval of our kin into our hands," Handler 3 announced loudly. "How do we do that?" one of the handlers within the establishment questioned. "Since we can't do it through conventional means, we will have to try another." Handler 3 paused briefly before finally revealing what he had in mind. "The Zelios Tower. December goals. 500 golden tickets equals 4 chapters mass release. 1,000 golden tickets equals 8 chapters mass release. 1,000 privilege unlocks equals 2 extra chapters. 10,000 privilege unlocks equals 10 extra chapters. 1 magic castle equals 1 extra chapter. 1 spacecraft equals 2 extra chapters. Golden gashapon equals 4 extra chapters. And special shootout. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.